All right, we are going live. We're going live. Sorry for the delay. Things are quite hectic on over my end. Let's make sure that the audio is coming through all fine and crisp like. We'll see. There we go. There's the audio. A little choppy. I'm going to chalk that up to just my bad connection. Yikes. Well, let us then get underway. Say great to see people here. There in the chat. Already got early on early jump ins. Darkest Adrian saying just in time for Good Friday, and are saying I'll answer the question in the promo image. Caddy is totally like botching the story of the Deltarune, like totally. She absolutely is. And yes, it is Good Friday to everyone who celebrates Good Friday or is practicing Christian. Say again, Good Friday. For everyone else, Happy Friday. Good evening, good morning, good day, wherever you are at. Hope that you are having a good time. So, with that being said, today our main topic is going to be discussing religion in fiction, and this has been. I felt like it was appropriate for the day, but also, oh man, I have just come back from watching two more episodes of The Rise of Merlin, and I was like, I have thoughts. And rather than just simply rant and rave like this is so horrible, take I wish to take what I have seen, what I have witnessed, and try to transform it into something a little bit more helpful than just simply shouting into the void, and also taking that creative discussion and applying it to what we see in Deltarune. Because in chapter 4, we get to go inside the church, we get to sample the juice, and we get to start hearing the prophecy of the Deltarune, although it is botched at first. So we get some pretty big things going on. However, when you start stepping back and you begin thinking, okay, so what exactly have we gotten from this church? Are we calling it like the Church of the Angel, Church of Deltarune? Say that is something to consider. The thing is that when you stop to think about what you're actually getting in the church scenes and in the discussions with Father Alvin, you begin to question, wait a second, is Toby Fox just throwing just like some random little tidbits at us, or did he actually craft like a legit religion? Now then, people who decide to write religions and faiths into their stories don't have to come up with something from top to bottom entirely new, something entirely innovative and concrete that people can believe in and everything. And oh boy, I just got a warning saying my internet connection was bad. Sucks. And so sorry if the quality isn't great, everyone. What a day. But it again, this discussion I think should raise some questions and then hopefully answer said questions of whether or not Toby Fox actually did like his due diligence in creating an engaging, interesting religion, or is the Church of the Angel and the whole Deltarune prophecy, is it really just window dressing and an engine, a method through which we can get the story going even further than we already have? Because chapter 4 is pretty big about the whole prophecy deal. So, I mean, granted, it plays into the main theme of whether or not we have any sort of autonomy, free will, the ability to truly influence the story as we would like. Gerson assures us that ability does indeed exist, but the prophecy seems to state otherwise. Uh, Art says, "Oh my gosh, I am angry. Not at you or anyone here." Oh boy, Arts, do tell us what is the cause of this anger? Is it something you've read, something you've seen? I got an email from Limited Run Games, and they delayed the Sonic Cross World Special Edition by 6 months. Arrgh! Okay, yeah, no, that's upsetting. That's a 6 month delay. Wow. Uh, so, oh, I mean, good luck. uh, say you can join me in in my frustration and anger and having to wait so long for what will probably never be other seasons of the Shy Hero and the Assassin Princesses, or Kimiwa Maito-sama, or still waiting for Nagatoro season 3. Oh, and you paid almost $300. Woof. Oof, that's rough. Hey, ISO, great to have you here. Oh yeah, no, that's rough. When you drop that much money and you're not getting what you asked for, mm-mm-mm. Nope. Uh, that is no good. That's a no bueno. uh, yeah, no, that can be frustrating. There have been some Kickstarter projects that I poured money into that I knew would take some time. Getting anything like Wakfu or Godspeed. So I was already buckled in for like, yep, it's going to take a while, but it kind of sucks when you're like, if they gave an assurance of we'll have it out by such and such a date, and they're like, oh, by the way, that's not going to happen now. Alrighty. Darkest Stadium says, I have a game concept where the church plays an important role in the story. Some of the church members are recruitable party members and act as clerics who can treat members and act as clerics who can treat injuries and ailments. Well, that's cool. The Angels religion has made me scratch my skull so hard in trying to think of its history. Is there a Catholic version of the prophecy? Did it start in the Middle East? So yeah, that is an excellent question there, Stormcrow. Like, where on earth did the Angels religion come from? I think that based on what details that we can find in game, that the prophecy that we're dealing with, and also the religion of the angel, is probably very homegrown. Now, I'll actually, so because that's an excellent question, and I do have and hey, oh boy, yeah, you can actually get your refund there, Dork. Arts, yeah, hopefully. But okay, so let me actually elaborate with what I've been able to so far uncover about the religion of the angel in Deltarune. So in the room that you can find, the room that is very deeply hidden in the fourth chapter, where you can go and you can interact with a book in this secret room. When you open up the book, it details how there was a star that fell from the sky and it cried a river of glass. We've already encountered glass in the game. The glass is indicative of these dark shards that, through which, when you look through them, present seemingly alternate versions of the reality that's before us. Whether that be something that could actually happen, will happen, might never happen, but terrifies you. We don't fully know. Now, it also isn't always bad, because, for instance, Asgore's been looking through one, and he sees a possibility in which the town accepts him again as a hero. He's back together with Toriel. The family's all happy again, and everything, and it's just it's just so great. Which is very different from just about anything else that we can find in the game when looking through through these dark crystals, these shadow crystals, the dark crystals. Yeah, when we say dark crystal, it's like, wait a second, not the actual dark crystal. The dark crystal is a fantastic movie and should have been a fantastic multi-season show, but that's another matter entirely. The shadow crystals, a form of dark stars, not necessarily a form of dark stars, but the tears of a star. And also, like we've seen from the Titans, we've seen stars. And also, what is it that you go and you say that? You say that stars. So there's so with that little bit, with that just that smallest of hints as to the real world building that's going on here, we can determine that there's a whole lot having to do with stars. That the star that fell basically started this all. This star that has cried out this river of glass. This star from which the this darkness has arrived. From this darkness comes the demon's tail, the thing that crawls. We've gotten entities such as Friend, as Eram, and through this power of darkness, we've got the roaring night, very likely Des being transformed into this eldritch monstrosity. So it all comes back then to this star. And one of the things, and so like this is us already kind of thinking a little bit ahead for later on in this discussion, because once we've gone over like how to kind of do what to consider when it comes to applying anything in terms of religion into fiction, like there is obviously a history here, a history that we are not being told. What's been handed down through the ages has been this prophecy. Around this prophecy has sprung up a church. The only thing that we know of that this church does is it focuses on the prophecy. Father Alvin tells us that they don't believe in sin nor the need for forgiveness of sins. So the Church of the Angel, the Church of Deltarune, that doesn't seem to be an issue at all. But rather, it's all centered around on this prophecy and on the hope or fear of this prophecy being fulfilled. So that's as far as we can so far really tell. Stork Station says, Stormcrow, I don't think that's what's happened, even though it has similarities to Christianity, it's still its own thing. I agree with that. Yes, Friend. One of the few cats I consider to be one. Oh, oof. Oh, you just got to get to know some good cats, Storkus. Stormcrow says, Lars theory, but maybe the visions that the shards show the wielders are what an unnamed or unknown entity in Deltarune wants the holders to see. And that's also a very real possibility. That the notion that you have no free will is a lie, because you're being shown things through these shards that make you think that something's going to happen, or that something truly is this other way. And if at first you're like, oh no, there's no way that Susie would ever be angry at Chris, then so you're like, wait a second, but it could happen. We have seen Susie angry at Chris back in chapter 1, so we know it's a real possibility. Susie doesn't like being lied to. We saw how Susie reacted to Toriel dancing with Sans. Oh no, what if Susie finds out what's all been happening with Chris? It's a prophecy of what will happen. And that's the thing, is that in order to mess around with your idea of free will, your belief in free will, all someone has to do is give a convincing enough of a lie. Even if you reject that lie, the notion that that lie could be reality stays with you, and it begins to inform all of your choices from that point on, effectively robbing you of your free will. Gersa, on the other hand, is like, who cares? Who cares if it's real or not? You just do what you want to do. And by doing what you want to do, you might be surprised that you will be able to do what you want to do. Art says, there's a video I watched by a YouTuber called Nighthawk, who pointed out when Susie punched out the final prophecy, an energy wave went out, pointing out that Susie may have changed the prophecy there. Susie crashed out on Lancer in chapter 1. I expect a reprise of that in chapter 5 or 6 when she finds out about the promise. There is a very good chance. Like, do not write off that Susie could have another crash out moment in this game, because again, she doesn't like being lied to, and because Chris and Ralsei are both withholding very important information from her, she will take that the wrong way at first. You got a good drinker there. I don't get the whole not believing in sin thing. If the monster's religion's whole thing is to be kind to others, Won't not doing that go against the entire foundation of the religion? Ah, excellent philosophical question right there. Now, there are those people who even like even across mainstream or I say world religions like Christianity and Judaism, there are sects, and I'm not saying sex sex, but like sects sects, which means different branches of those major world religions that actually are like sin what, just do what you got to do. You know goodness when you know it. Ain't no badness when it's there before you. And what you want to do is you just want to make sure that you're focusing on doing the good things that will make you happy. And if you're happy, then God's happy. Yay! Like that's the like that's the mentality. And so that then is able to brush under the rug the difficulties of sin and the bigger conversation that a lot of people have about how they don't want to feel guilty and how they feel guilted by other people, and if they feel guilted that takes away their happiness and yada yada yada. Oh boy, the moment that you start dealing with the philosophies behind religion, that's like when you crack open the that's when you crack open that can of worms and things just get and everyone has their own opinion. Dark Station says to Art, I didn't realize that part about the prophecy. We know what you meant, Lars. Hey, well, it's always, I mean, it went in doubt. As I would actually tell my students, I always told my students this. I'm like, when you write to me in like on tests or in essays, I want you to always treat me like I'm an idiot. And they'd be like, wait, what? And it's like, yes, I want you to treat me, Mr. Jensen, like I'm an idiot. The reason being is because if you can't explain yourself in such a way that someone who doesn't know what you're referencing is if someone who doesn't know what you're talking about is able to actually follow along with what you write or what you talk about, then you actually know that you're doing a good job. If outsiders have no ability to follow you, and even if someone knowledgeable on the topic can't follow you, that's when you know you failed. So it's always best to act as if your audience has no clue what you're talking about. Now, then then obviously there are instances where you're like, okay, I am in a room full of rocket scientists. We all understand rocket science, so we're going to talk on a much higher level. But if you are trying to talk rocket science to a bunch of people who don't know how to operate rockets, it's best to talk to their level, even if there is a rocket scientist in the room. Just because there's a fellow rocket scientist in the room doesn't mean that you should suddenly use big words and start bringing up formulas and histories that the other 99% of the people in the room have no idea what you're referencing. Lars is stupid. Just joking. No human is perfect, but we are stronger than we can admit our faults and help each other overcome them. It's a very positive, very positive outlook. Thank you for sharing, Dorcas. Or it says, yeah, in the video I watched, the creator pointed out that the aura in the room was magenta when Susie punched out the prophecy. It went back to normal. The idea is that Susie changing the prophecy there without realizing it by her sheer will, just like when Chris or Des created a fountain. And I like that idea. I like that idea that there's already changes happening. And in fact, ooh, okay. So since you already brought that up, let me actually, like, this is going to be a topic for a future video. So I will attempt to elaborate a little bit more on that in the future. But, and I know I've already kind of touched on this in the past, but Susie was not meant to go into the first Dark World with Chris. She was supposed to go into the Dark World with Noelle. That, I am positive, was the original plan. Someone was supposed to go into the Dark World. Noelle wanted to go into the Dark World. The plan was already set into motion. We open up the Dark World in the supply room. We make sure that we make sure that Alfie's has no extra chalk around. So that way when Susie decides to munch on the chalk, or even if she doesn't munch on the chalk, but people immediately blame Susie, Alfie's will send Susie out of the room because Alfie's does not want to deal with Susie. Well, someone's going to get chosen to go there. Noelle, being the good girl that she is, who has a crush on Susie, will want to go. That was the plan. And so Chris, Carol, and Des are like, okay, we understand. Like, Susie is simple and straightforward. Noelle is predictable, and Alfie's doesn't want to deal with any of this. This is an almost foolproof thing. Like, no one else in the classroom will want to go with Susie. Thereby, Susie goes into the dark world with Noelle. They get lost there. They both are just shocked and everything. And Susie will become the dragon. Noelle will be terrified of the dragon. And then Chris will somehow sneak out of class or what have you, go to the dark world, enter, and as a knight, because they are revealed like as a knight, as a warrior, will rush on in, save the Lady Fair Noelle from the clutches of the evil dragon Susie, put Susie down, solve all the other stuff that needs to be done there in the dark world, and then Bob's your uncle. Noelle is convinced she's got to hang out with Chris, and that way they can already begin planning the Snowgrave route back in Chapter 1. But all of that went out the window when Alfie's did what was effectively unexpected. And it's like, Chris, you're going with Susie. And that's kind of why then if you go and you interact with all of the other characters, the dialogue implies that Chris is trying to get out of this. And at first I think, oh, it's because Chris doesn't want to go hang out with Susie. But when we already in Chapter 1, when you begin digging a little bit into the dialogue, if you exhaust all the dialogue options throughout the game, it becomes clear Chris has a burgeoning crush, if not already a full-on crush on Susie. Wait a second. Why would someone who's got a crush on the bully not want to go with the bully to the dark world? And at first it's easy to say, oh, it's because Chris doesn't want to go in there. No, it's because Chris knew they were not supposed to go in there. Not yet. The entire plan went out the window because Alfie's did not play according to the script and sent Chris with Susie, and no one tagged Chris out. Not even Noelle. So that is something to look a little bit more into in the future. Now then, coming back. So the thing is that how does that tie into what you guys were already talking about up here about Susie already kind of like changing the prophecy or maybe changing fate? It's because fate's already kind of been changed. Things have not been playing out according to how Carol and Chris, who are trying to complete the prophecy, how they expected to do it. And sure, they're hitting the check marks, but hitting the check marks doesn't necessarily mean that things are playing according to plan. There's like there are great examples throughout many different stories where everything goes according to plan until it suddenly doesn't. And you then find out in retrospect, all of these little things that happen along the way also changed how the future was going to play out, no matter if you hit all of your check marks along the way. Art says, it's like when we're writing, when the idea is clear in your head and we type the words on the screen, that's us making a fountain. The backstory is there. The fountain brings the story to life. I think the reason why the prophecy doesn't change is by sheer belief by a lot of the town that it cannot change. But Susie's will is so damn strong, it can override it. I like that idea. Dorcas says, magenta is one of Susie's main colors, right? If the magenta of the last prophecy indicated that it was already going to have a good ending, but Susie's punch represents sealing the hero's fate. Yeah, but Susie saw the prophecy and didn't like what she saw, so she punched it out. Alvies is the biggest cruisy shipper. Oh, she is. She absolutely is. Susie, punch. I think Chris and Carol are improvising here at this point. They are improvising, trying to get back on track, but things are already playing out differently. There is no going back. Tori says, I've been thinking about the Knight Dragon Princess dynamic a lot in regards to the Fun Gang, namely in how the dynamic could shift with certain contexts. Interesting. You should elaborate a little bit more on that. All right, so let's see, about half an hour in and everything. So we've gotten a chance to talk a little bit about Deltarune, already set up what our conversation is going to be, determining what the heck is actually going on with the religion of the angel that Toby's been setting up. Of course, there are the in-game questions, but we want to look at this from the perspective of writers. What exactly is going on here? Is this actually good writing on Toby's part, or is it that our interests in the game and in the characters and its plot are so strong that it's overriding our sense of, oh, actually, this is not well done. And I'll show you guys what I mean by that as we go further in. Don't just take out the torches and pitchforks yet. I know what I'm saying right there is pretty close to blasphemy, but bear with me for a moment. Let me upload the slideshow for today, and I don't want to share my screen. I want to get the slides. Yes, the slides. Get them from my computer and writing religion. No keys, no documents, only handmade gifts. Anything? Come on, load it here. It felt like you gathered enough clues to tell Susie. No, Chris, no, I want all the clues. I want all the stuff. I want to know everything that Noelle knows and that you secretly know. But for now, let's talk writing religion. So, our goals for this lesson, aside from being able to evaluate Deltarune's Church of the Angel, is we want to be able to identify what a religion is. We want to determine why a religion matters within a story. What does a religion need? Why does a religion need? I'll do you one better. Why is Gomorrah? And I also want to address the difficulties of using real world religions in your stories. And yeah, again, part of this is birthed out of how the rise of the Merlin has just been grinding my gears. But in any case, why any of this truly matters for you as writers and also for you as audience members, as readers, as viewers of fantastic stories or stories that I hope are fantastic. Here's one thing that we need to acknowledge. Not every story needs religion, just like how not every story needs action. Not every story needs a love interest. Not every story needs drama. Like you don't need those things necessarily to make a compelling story, but depending on the story that you wish to tell, religion can become a very compelling, very powerful element within your story. Also, let us recognize that there are loads of people who want to read stories that either mirror, reflect, or agree with their own personal views. This goes for like your worldviews, your own personal ideology, but for a lot of people, religion. My good friend and sometime editor, Danielle, has told me that like she actually got shouted out of a group. Effectively, it was online, so it's a little bit hard for them to shout her out over written comments, but they got really upset at her when she was pointing out how like certain story, like when she was recommending certain stories, that she's like, oh yeah, these stories are really good, they're family friendly, they're Christian friendly, and people are like, but that's not written by a born again. This story doesn't preach to me. Do not recommend this to me. This book has romance. Romance is unchristian like. And she's like, okay, you guys are a little bit more hardcore than I thought you were. And she's like, yeah, there are people out there who really want to read fantasy stories or sci-fi stories that are basically their religion in just a different setting. Same house, different curtains, pretty much. And so there's a market for that, and there are people who try to write those kinds of stories, but then those stories often fall flat, even for people that they feel like they are writing for. Why? Well, it's because this is the problem. People take their religious views for granted when it's actually more likely that even for their intended audiences, that the readers and viewers will not see things the exact same way. Religion is not a monolith. Not everyone thinks and believes and feels the same ways. Like even like Christianity is broken into basically thousands of different branches of belief. Islam, people think that Islam's a monolith. Islam has at least 15 different major branches of belief. Hinduism was basically designed around like thousands of different interpretations around the same gods. Buddhism is fractured depending on cultural regions. There is no one set code that unifies any one particular major world religion. And so that's the thing is that if you as a writer are like, yes, I'm going to infuse my religious views into a story, it's probably going to fall flat because most of your audience will not agree with you or think along the same lines as you. And yet there are so many great stories out there that approach religion, that have great commentary on religion, that even convey very powerful religious ideas. Why do those stories work while thousands of others don't? So that's kind of what we want to address, as well as figure out how to best utilize religion in stories if you feel like you should use it. Like what we see, for instance, in Deltarune with Toby Fox creating a church, the Church of the Angel. Now, when we get to the end, we'll have a good, healthy discussion about this. Believe you me. But first, we need to have a good, solid base of understanding. Stormcrow says, it's more in the fan project phase, but I really hope we have a chapter 0 for Deltarune. Like, imagine we play as either Azzy or Des, all culminating in December's disappearance. That would be really, really cool. If that ever happens, it will happen long after we get chapter 7. And then Dork says, the frick do you mean romance is unchristian-like? That's what I said. That is absolutely what I said. I was like, how? And Daniel's like, Lars, there are people out there with certain viewpoints. They are wild and crazy. They are not like you and me. But yeah, that's what they think. And I'm like, oh my gosh, who are these people? Not in my good Christian household. Take a good drink of water. It is hot out there today. Okay, so first off, what is religion? Simply put, religion is a codified series of beliefs and practices which reflect those beliefs. This means that there are established principles of belief, rules, there's histories and stories that unite and kind of give meaning and identity to the church, to the faith, and there must be leadership. So without rules, there is no order by which the people can express their faith. You need to have structure. Without structure, there's only chaos. And as someone who has spent a lot of time in the religious world, actually, and met with people of many different religions, I can tell you this: where people believe that they have a faith but no leader, those people really quickly discard their own beliefs real fast. Yeah, you need leadership in order to maintain a religion. You need structure. You need some sort of rules. You need history and religious stories for the people to anchor themselves in, because otherwise it's very easy to lose that sense of identity. This is particularly important when you look at just how much Christianity has fractured over the centuries. The way that you can actually determine who's of a different faith within Christianity, a lot of it actually comes down to the history and the stories that they adhere to, because almost all of them are using the exact same Bible. So what makes the difference? The difference is their history that gives them their identity. Now, it's important to understand that now this is very important here, and this is actually a neat little element to Deltarune that Toby does put in there. I will give him credit for this. It is important to understand that all religions evolve and revise themselves over time. They are not immutable entities. meaning any church can and very likely will change with time. Any faith can and will change over time. If you think that one religion is just, oh, it's always ever been this way and will always be that way, that is not the case. It might feel that way, but all religions have radically changed over their histories. And as someone then, again, if you're thinking of like, ooh, I want to like tap into like old Christianity or old Islam or old Hinduism or old Shintoism, just know that that old Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Shintoism, or whatever is not reflective of what people actually do today. So that is something to consider. Also, if you're trying to come up with your very own religion, it can be really fun to like show how things might have changed if you're doing like epic fantasy. For instance, in the Stormlight Archive, we get little snippets here and there of how Vorinism, which is the main religion that the main characters, Kaladin, Dalinar, and Shallan are basically a part of, we get fragments of how Vorinism has evolved over time. And that like shocks them, like, no, not in my good almighty household. That's weird. Why would people think that way? You're supposed to cover up your left hand. What do you mean girls didn't cover up their left hands? Oh my gosh. They're like walking around naked. Or then how, as things are beginning to happen throughout the series, more and more women begin to wear gloves on their left hands rather than just completely cover up their left hands with a really ridiculously long sleeve or a cuff. There's now women running around with gloves on. Oh, which to the Vorin believers in the Stormlight Archive, it's almost akin to like coming into work and seeing a woman in like a bikini or maybe like in a full body swimsuit, and you're just all like, you're not naked, but you're clearly not according to dress code. But that is a change that is happening in Vorinism as more and more women are like, it's dumb to cover up our left hands. We're going to do it because we're good Vorinist girls, but we like practicality. Being able to use your left hand whenever you need it, especially if you're a left-handed woman, is rather nice. All right, let me quickly catch up with some of the stuff you guys are saying right here. I know plenty of older Christian people who would love a good, wholesome romance. Exactly. I don't get where some of those weirdos are coming from. They exist. They do indeed exist. I mean, yeah, my mom has been a Christian her whole life long. She's moved from faith to faith over time, but like across all of that, she likes a good romance. She prefers a good romance over an action story. Whereas me, I'm like, action. Or who is seen as the quote unquote wrong person. If you fall in love with the wrong person. Okay, I see what you're saying. If you fall in love with the wrong person or who is seen as the wrong person. Yes. Yeah, no, there are some people who feel very upset when in stories people who they feel shouldn't be together get together. Like, what do you mean the Christian and the Muslim got together? There's no way. It's like, yeah, there's way. Like, don't let religion get in the way of a good love story. Anyways, Strongworld says, Lars, I mean, listen, Azrael can attest. Whenever Death showed an ankle or a shoulder, poor Christian boy thoughts became bad Christian boy thoughts. I love that. Okay, Stormcrow, you are absolutely going to love a video that I have upcoming about doing a full analysis of the song Hellfire. Because I take that same kind of wording and I throw it onto Frollo, which just makes Frollo look all the more ridiculous and villainous because it's all like, dude, you need to stop acting like a teenager in church who just experienced his first boner. You can get over it. I know you feel embarrassed, but it's okay. It's okay. All the guys have been there. At least all the church going guys have been there before. Doris says, at art, you mean when other Christians think that you fell in love with the wrong person? Sort of like Christian parents not letting you date a boy or girl because they don't go to the same church or they have a questionable social media profile. Yes, yes, that's yeah, that's entirely relatable there. You know, Lars, if George R. R. Martin wrote Stormlight Archive, all the women would have their arms cut off and left in a massive pile. You know, essentially, you would have not enough of yeah. No, that's yeah. George R. R. Martin would absolutely do that, and that's why he should never touch the Stormlight Archive. Brandon Sanderson knows what he's doing there. Uh, or there are people like that. Oh yeah, yeah. There are unfortunately people like that. God of Hyperdeath Animatic sings Hellfire. Someone needs to make that, dude. You know what? That would actually be awesome. Okay, I would take a totally ironic Azrael singing about deaths, singing about deaths. But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing, though. In order to make that really work out, you have to switch between Hellfire and Heaven's Light like repeatedly as Azrael's just all like Heaven's Light. I have seen an angel. Oh my gosh, this is so great, but I feel so sinful. Oh, oh my gosh! Not now. I feel like I need to. Like, I feel like I need to work on this. I am not an animator, not at all. But I could possibly write up the screenplay for this. Anyways, Art says supposedly Toriel was quite the let loose party girl back in the day when she was in college, but now she's your atypical church mom. My mom was pretty judgmental of whomever my sisters were dating. Some of the boys were pretty scummy to my mom's credit. Yeah. I mean, mother does usually know best. When mom actually cares about her kids, mother's got the intuition. They've got the experience usually. Uh, but oof. I get the social media thing, but going to a different church, that's excessive. Oh yeah. No, I've seen that kind of stuff as well. But in any case, we're getting slightly off topic here. So let's ask ourselves this: why does anyone in my story want to belong to a religion? And I'll take one of my own stories as an example here. So we have so you got the world of Draconia, the world of Tumulteller or Whitefire, where dragons reign supreme. The dragons and the humans also they have their own religions. Now, there's supposedly a religion that unifies the whole world, but it really doesn't. That one is the worship of the great dragon god, the god who created all. And for the dragons, oh, it's such a wonderful religion because that religion says yes, the dragons must be the dominant species, the dominant race upon this world because the great dragon god said so, and humans are their servants because the great dragon god said so. And so for the dragons, are like, oh, I love this because this religion justifies how I act. However, there are even humans who actually believe in that because the great dragon god just didn't simply say that the dragons can do whatever they want to the humans. Their religion states that humans should be cared for. Humans are their responsibility. Yes, humans are their property, but the humans need to be cared for because if you don't care for them, you waste the great god's gift to you. Humanity was his gift to you, and if you besmirch that gift, you're besmirching the dragon god. And so, like, that's the most pure form of that religion. And so the humans are okay with that. At least some of them are. Other humans have very different religions in order to justify their dislike of the great dragon god and of dragons. And then you got other dragons who are all like, I like a religion that tells me that I'm on top, but I don't like how it tells me that I got to treat everyone else nicely. I will instead join if I want to believe in something, I will believe in something that tells me I can just do whatever I want. And then you got other dragons who are like, what does it matter? I'm a dragon for crying out loud. I am big, I am powerful. Humans don't stand a chance against me, and I've got magic. They don't. So I don't need a god telling me that I'm on top, and so you have basically different motivations for believing in what these people do. It has a lot religions many times, or what religion people join themselves to, usually at its basis, at its most base, has a lot to do with has a lot to do with where you are in life, what you feel your needs are, and then trying to fulfill those needs, give you the comfort, the guidance, the assistance, the identity, the belonging that you need in order to feel way more stable. After that comes like what religion can tell you about life beyond death or the purpose of life and all this other stuff. That's the like the feel good stuff that keeps you around. But for a lot of people, again, at their most base level, it's all about fulfilling their needs. Where people feel that their needs are already implicitly fulfilled without religion, that's where people see religion more as something that is a luxury. It's something that I do that makes me feel good rather than something that I absolutely need. And so me bringing this up for you then as an author, as you're crafting your characters and the world that they're in and the religions that they believe in, think about why people even join themselves to any sort of faith. This is something that bugs me so often when I read, like, when I read loads of isekai. There's always these religions of the goddess, of the great god, usually the goddess. You're like, okay, why do people believe in this? Because there's never ever any reason given why they should care. Like, it's a rare occurrence in any sort of isekai story for them to ever explain why they care about the religion that they believe in. And if you don't have that connection between people to faith, your religion, your fictional religions is just like salad dressing all over that salad that you didn't ask for. You're like, man, this is a delicious salad with all of the trimmings and everything. And then suddenly someone pops out the blackberry raspberry goop. And it's like blop, 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 blop. And you're just like, I didn't ask for that. I was going to like put ranch on it or something. So that's that's kind of where I'm coming from. What about a story where the deity is scared away by the religion? I'm Omega. That is a great idea. And actually, if you want an example of that, and I know that there's probably more than just these examples, but if you want a good example of that, read the second Mistborn. Read the second generation of Mistborn. So like Mistborn era number 2, which is the Wax and Wane series. That is a great one because you've got God who's just all like, I love everyone, I really do. I just wish that they would, like, he's like I don't even need them to worship me. I would just like it. I would just like for them to actually be good, do the good thing. Oh, yes, like the scientist from Star Trek, First Contact, who got scared by his legacy. Exactly. Star says, to be honest, I've no desire to make up a religion for any of my stories. Write what you know, as one might say. And that's totally fine. You do not need to come up with religions for your stories. You don't. And you can reappropriate religions that you already know. Like, for instance, Victor's saying my fancy religion is inspired by Norse gods. Fantastic. It works really well. You've got, and for Mistborn is absolutely informed, like its religious system and everything. Or not say that's a religious system, but the take on religion, the importance of religion, and how religion plays a massive role at the end of the first trilogy is 100% informed by the fact that Brandon Sanderson is a Latter-day Saint. If you know the core beliefs of the Latter-day Saints like I do, because I am one, you will immediately recognize, like, oh, wow, Sanderson, that was bold. That was very bold of you to put that in there. But if you don't know, then it's totally fine. Because Sanderson is not preaching at you. Sanderson is not trying to convert you to his faith through the Mistborn trilogy. But if you know his faith, if you know what he believes, then it sticks out. You're like, Sanderson, I see what you're doing right there. You little sly dog, you. Sorry, Sage said. Art says it's okay. Sorry, too much information there, Lars. Well, you've already shared that with me, Art. I was surprised that you wanted to put that on out there, but you did. Anywho's in again. Thinking about like if you actually are going to use a religion in your story, if it's going to be something that's important to the character that they believe what they believe, then follow through with that connection. Why that's important to them. And not because, again, you wish to preach to your audience, but because you want to make religion make sense within the story. Because when religion makes sense within the fictional story that you're writing, what it does is it allows for the audience to connect. Not necessarily that they will agree with the beliefs of your main characters, but rather that they will understand your main characters. That's the important thing. It's something that so many writers who are trying to write religious messages into their stories, I don't think really understand. It's not that the audience doesn't want religious messaging. It's rather that they want to be able to understand it and connect with it, not be preached at. So, sorry, it's kind of branded image in my head. Arts, I understand. I have my own stories that are not rated E for everyone that should be shared here. Instances where I'm like, I did not need to see that. I did not need to see that. Why? Anyways, moving on. So if you're wondering what it is, like if you're like, okay, I want to write a religion into my stories, I want my characters to have religious beliefs, how exactly then do I make it where like the audience can understand why someone would believe this? Just know what religion brings to individual people. Religion brings identity. It brings community, purpose, order, hope, an understanding of the world and one's place in it. That is what religion brings to people. So again, if you're wondering why your characters would be religious, if you wish to make them religious, just think about that. Is it that the person that you're writing, they really love going after church or after whatever it is that they're doing after doing Shabbat or after doing their prayers, that they go and they have like fried chicken afterwards, or they all go and they get tea. They feel part of a community. It's great. Or is it that like, no, there needs to be an understanding of right and wrong. There needs to be a sense of morality. Where there's no order, there is chaos. The church gives me order. Is it that someone's like, look, like I can understand why you believe what you do or why it is that you do what you do, but know this. I am going to, as character so-and-so, I will do the things that I do because I believe in this. I cannot break this because it would break who I am. Again, going to Brandon Sanderson and the Stormlight Archive, you got Dalinar, who refuses to flirt back to Navani in the first book because he's just all like, look, Vorinism teaches that you're not supposed to marry your brother's widow. No, that's forbidden. He's like, I know I love you. I know I've got the hots for you, but no, if I break that, then I break my oath to God. And then if I break my oath to God, who am I? Who am I? I'd be a horrible person is who? And Navani is just all like, no, God can go stuff it. I want you and I to go do the Smexy dance in the closet. He's just like, ah. It's a funny thing to see because why is it that Dalinar holds back from doing anything with Navani in the first book? It's because his religion provides him his identity. If he doesn't do what his religion tells him to do, he's like, who am I? Oh! So that's one way that you can write your characters. Again, just thinking about what religion brings to people in general helps you then to think about how religion plays a role into the lives of your characters should you decide to use it. What, that Leviticus quote with the whole brother's widow thing? Actually, in Leviticus, thou shalt take the wife of, thou shalt take the widow of your brother, So if your brother died, if you're a guy, and according to the law of Moses, if your brother died and did not have any kids, you were supposed to marry your brother's widow, so that way you could have babies with her, and then all of her children would be counted as your nieces and nephews. I know it's weird, but yeah, that's the law of Moses, the law of Voronism. Thou shalt not, no, no lying with thy brother's widow. Until Dalnar's like at the end of the book, he's like, "Oh yeah, God's dead." Okay, God's dead. That totally shatters my worldview. So his understanding of the world and one's place in it. He's like, I guess I'm just left with my honor, with my personal honor. And because God is dead and God's commandments don't mean anything anymore, Navani, what was that about? Sexy fun times you were talking about? The heel turn, the absolute heel turn, the moment that Dowler's like, God is dead, so that means the commandments no longer mean anything. Sweetness. Chicken and tea, Southern Baptist vibes. Oh yeah, oh, good, yeah, good cold tea, some fried chicken. Oh my gosh, make myself hungry right now. All right, Sunday, it'd be church, and we'd go out to lunch afterwards, kind of like how Chris and Azzy would get cocoa after church in the game. Those are good times. And Arts, thank you so much for bringing that up, because that will be important for us. As again, when we take our understanding of religions and fantasy and everything, and then we start applying that to Deltarune. Is again, the question is has Toby Fox actually done a good job of creating his own fictional religion, the Church of the Angel, or is it just window dressing? And that right there is very important. Chris and Azzy have community because of the regimen of go to church, then go to the diner afterwards and have lunch. And that's very important for Chris. And it's one of the things that's kind of cool because and oh my gosh, I just realized this. How did I not realize this? Because in chapter 4, if you decide to go with Susie on over to the diner, you are completing something that Chris has not had in their life for almost an entire year, as best as we can tell, or who knows, months, maybe a year. That Chris has not gone to the diner with family or with anyone after church. Chris hasn't been going to church. And Susie gave Chris in chapter 4, if you choose to go to the diner, Chris gets community once again. Yeah, they have a place that they belong. And if there's any good justification for why it gets blacked out when Chris and Susie start talking with each other and then drawing on the window and everything, is because Chris does not want us interlopers to dare impede on such a beautiful, dare we say, sacred moments. Holy cow. Suddenly I'm seeing chapter 4 in a wholly different light. Wow. This is what a lesson should do to you. Yeah, I, as the teacher, I'm like, I am learning something right now. Oh, holy revelation. Okay, so religion in fiction. So thinking about why characters would want religion, how religion can connect to them and everything. Here it is. The honest truth is that you can do whatever you want with your fantasy religions. Like what Toby does with the Church of the Angel is up to him. I can say what I like, what I don't like, but you want to know what? It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it's what Toby wants to do. I can only say whether or not I feel it's written well. So guess what? Don't sweat it over what you want to do with your own fantasy religions. But just know this, the more effort and thought you put into your fantasy religions, the more engaging and worthwhile they will be to your readers. So, like for instance, with Victor the Lore Seeker, the more effort you put into your Norse-inspired religion, the more engaged people will get. The more that I'm Omega might create a story where, like, the god gets freaked out because of the religion built around them, and you go into detail about that, you will be rewarded by people really empathizing with the god, and either that brings out the horror or the hilarity of the situation. So the more effort you put in, the more worthwhile and engaging this fancy religion will be to your readers. But when it comes to adapting already established world religions into your fictional stories, so stuff like Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Shintoism, and others, say just remember these two important rules. First, please be respectful. Like using someone's religion, that's something very important to them. So be respectful about it. You wouldn't want someone taking something that's near and dear to you and just contorting and doing weird things with it. Yeah, be respectful. But also be aware that no religion is a monolith, meaning that everyone just agrees on it. Again, like I pointed this out to my students all the time. I'm like, most of you are Christian. But most of you do not belong to the same church. Most of you also view the Bible in completely different ways. You would interpret it many different ways, and that's okay. But just know this, that when you're all like, yes, religion, that everyone else in the room, even if they might be of the same greater umbrella faith, like Islam or Christianity, that doesn't mean that they will all agree. And so you then as the reader, that's something to bear in mind. Because if you try to present everything as, well, this is the truth, this is the truth, this is the truth, it's going to rub people really wrong. I will point immediately to the Da Vinci Code as a great example. Gulliman, yes, father? Scorched earth. I don't get the reference, but I do like reading Scorched Earth after yes, father. All right, let me take another drink of water here quick. All right. So, more points to consider if you decide to create your own fictitious religion, something that does not exist in the real world. Number one, what are all the different gods and ideas that people in your world believe? Like, it's really boring when there's just like a world religion because, again, not everyone will believe the same way. If you've got religion, you will have all different kinds of different interpretations of that belief or departures from it. Warhammer, as told by Madman Fenrir. Okay, and the moment that I read that, it makes absolute sense that that's Warhammer. Number two, why people in your world are a part of different religions. Again, thinking about, coming back here, what is it about the identity, the community, the purpose, the order, the hope, your understanding of the world and the place in it? What is it that the different religions can bring to people in that regard? For instance, in my book, Bleed, Steam, and Steel, the people of the Northern Islands are all really big into the belief of Boromir and his family. Why? Well, because Boromir is the one who saved them all during the Shattering and blessed them with their massive bodies because they're all giants. They're all like 8 to 9 feet tall. So for them, like, of course, like, hello, I have look at me. I'm a giant. The rest of you are puny and small. It's because the gods favor me. And then you've got the religion of the sphere in the city of Damocus, which is an important setting throughout the first book. And the sphere is all about the complementary nature of men and women, of how men and women need to be in harmony with each other. They are parts of the same whole. And if they are not, then you have disharmony and everything comes apart. And so the religion of the sphere is about unity, and specifically the unity between men and women. And that's in order to create a world of order and peace, which makes sense when you think about how the world was shattered and how all of these religions and cultures were effectively wiped out. And so basically, the sphere is just an ancient reactionist faith to, well, the world went to pot, And then ideas were taught to people that made them then realize we need to work together. And by working together, we become strong, we become better, and we can establish a world of peace, which then created the religion of the sphere. You then have the religion of the you then have the religion of the steam god, which is a very new faith, because people are all like, haha, with this new technology, with this new power, why should we care about all of these old religions? We have a new God, and the God is the one that we ourselves create. And then you have the religion of divine providence, which is that there's a higher power that orders how the world works, and that so long as you are within within what divine providence desires of you, life will be good. If you go against divine providence, you then cause chaos and you sin. So like right there, okay, so depending on what people believe, like the sphere seems like a really good religion for people who wish to have unity between men and women. Sounds really great. Divine providence is like, oh, order in the world. We have our set rules and we know what to do. You have the religion of Voromir, which is basically members only. Like, yes, we are northern giants. Gods love us. And then the steam god, which is basically yeah, who cares about all of that? We are in control, and we basically get to create our own god. TV Count says, what would be a bad move if you portray toxic religion, like how it would be used to abuse people weaker than you? Would be a bad move? So it would be a bad move if, well, actually, it's not necessarily a bad move to show how people will use religion to abuse others, because it's a very real and very relatable topic. But it depends on how you communicate it. Like if you say all religion is there to abuse people, that's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. There are those who believe that, but a lot of people will not like it. So that's something to consider. That's the stance you wish to take within your story, and it's possible to be nuanced. And that one question alone right there, TV, counts one of the reasons why a lot of people are like, look, I don't want to touch religion in my stories. I don't need to open that can of worms, which again is absolutely fine. You don't have to do it. But if you do, here's some things to consider in order to make it more engaging and appealing to wider audiences, so that way they don't bite your head off as a result. Number 3, how these religions impact the world. Because religions do. Religions inspire people to do the good or bad things that they do, the wars that they start, the technology that they explore, the philosophies that they come up with, and everything else. Here's actually like a really good example of this, which I mean is actually, I say it's good because it's very illustrative of what I'm trying to portray here. It's kind of sucks because it's actual pretty bloody history, but conquests. The jihads versus the crusades. During the early jihads, Islam swept across the Middle East and North Africa and well into Asia Minor, and conquered a bunch of lands where they had excellent technology and knowledge. And Islam does not purport destroy the stuff that you don't believe in. Not at all. It's like respect the works and doings of your neighbors, even if they don't believe in what you're saying or what you yourself believe in. Respect it. So they respect the knowledge and culture and heritage and writings of these people that the jihad conquered. And suddenly the Muslim world's like, oh my gosh, look at all this amazing stuff. This is brilliant. We can use this. And right, meanwhile, the Christian portion of the world is just like cycling the drain, like, we forgot everything, because people realized knowledge is power and decided to restrict access to knowledge and thereby keep people ignorant and keep them more malleable. But then during the Crusades, it's like, haha, we shall now conquer the Muslims. You have all of these Christians spilling into not just the Levant, Palestine region, but into Asia Minor, into North Africa as well. And they conquered, they took cities, and they found all of this preserved knowledge from the Muslims. And they're all like, wow, these guys are smart. I'm stealing this, which is, it's bad. It's bad. But because the Crusaders stole all this knowledge that had been preserved by the Muslims, because the Muslims, their own faith said you should not destroy this stuff, it was preserved beyond what the Christians had done to their knowledge for centuries. It got brought back to Europe, and suddenly people are like, "Oh my gosh, this stuff is amazing!" And then began incorporating all of this stolen knowledge from the Crusades into their world beliefs. And so, like, how do these religions impact the world? The choices and the beliefs of different religions in our own world have absolutely determined what people have learned, what people have built and created, why they've done what they've done, the explorations they've done, the wars they've waged. Religion is a force for both immense good and immense evil, depending on who wields it and their interpretation of their own religions. And that's something to consider in your stories. Again, should you explore religion? Then let me then Connorcraft, help. What did I miss? You've missed quite a bit of talking about religion, setting up our later on conversation about Deltarune, and talking about people being talking about certain Christians being really weird when it comes to dating or romance. TV account, it's more like a way it's used to control a household. And that's something that you can indeed explore TV account within a story. And unfortunately, that's something that happens across so many different households where people are effectively controlled by religion rather than given the chance to live their lives informed by that religion. That is something that's very real, very applicable, very understandable to a lot of readers. Hello, not help, dang it. Curse the autocorrect. Oh man, that ducking audio carrots. Continuing on says, so just talking about how to implement religion into your writing. Yep. Tyler Goodman's here to say Glitch Productions now has 19.7 million subs. Only 300,000 subs more to go till it reaches that magical 20 million marker. I know, they're just doing so well. I love seeing Glitch's success. Comcraft says some of my fanfic ideas do use religion. Maybe I should revisit those a bit. You can if you wish. Because again, religion can be a really good tool and implementation within your story, or it can be really bad. And I will have an axe to grind later in this lesson. Rise of Merlin, I am ready to tell you a new one. Finally, how do your characters feel about these religions and their own respective faiths? So, like, for instance, is a household maybe too domineering? Like, sure, I like my religion, but my religion is being used against me to control me. I don't like that. Or is it, oh, I absolutely do believe in this? Or is it, I don't believe in this, therefore I will not do according to what my religion or my family's religion tells me to do, or what my country's religion tells me to do? You can have a whole lot of fun exploring that with your different characters. In my book series, The Legend of the Ten Lords, you have my character, Ben, who is an avowed atheist. He doesn't, and basically what it is, as you pay attention throughout the books, it's not so much that he doesn't necessarily believe in a higher power. He just doesn't really like church. He doesn't want to believe in a higher power because that would then mean that there is a church that would be that he might have to join, which he doesn't like that. And so he's told by one person, he's like, yeah, I'm not actually going to tell you the truth about gods or the cosmos or anything like that because you're just not ready for it. If I told you the truth about gods or a god, you're not in the mindset to take it. So I'm not going to tell you. He's like, okay, whoo, that's great. He's like, but that doesn't mean that there aren't gods or a god. So be careful, dude. He's like, well, what? What am I supposed to do with that? I don't believe in them. It's like, hey, I'm just saying. And throughout the series, The Legend of the Ten Lords, you find out that there is this very strong sense of polar opposites between absolute good and absolute evil, and how everyone kind of plays a role in between. And the further you go good or the further you go evil, you actually gain powers as a result within the realms of imagination. But that also comes with consequences for either side that you choose. And there are people, even if Ben doesn't want to believe in anything having to do with religion, other people do. Other people have. And that informs their powers and their choices that he has to deal with. So, like, that's kind of the nuanced look that I take into the first half of my series. Concrest is thinking about my idea for a crossover between Transformers and Lancer. Religion plays a huge part of Lancer because in Lancer, humanity, in two separate occasions, accidentally made Eldritch gods in their image with an implied super evil third hidden away in the cosmos. That is super cool. I like that idea. Holy cow. Now then, the problem with using real world religions. Real world religions should always be handled delicately. Again, be respectful. But another thing to consider. A lot of people do not like to get preached at. I mean, there are people who say that the way I'm doing this lesson, I'm basically preaching at them, and I get that. Because, yeah, people just don't like getting preached at, no matter the faith, no matter the ideology. And most books really struggle to preach to their audiences. And the difference between preaching at and preaching to is important. Because preaching to people, when you preach to them, when you're trying to teach them of a certain religious viewpoint, certain religious ideology, you want to encourage discussions, thoughts, deeper engagement with the text. And you also need to open yourself to the readers to even attack your religious positions. That is what preaching to ultimately means. Preaching at usually means that you're treating whatever subject matter you're talking about as absolutely correct and it cannot be contested. Now, there are those people who do want to get preached at. And if that's what you want to write, just know this. You are sacrificing a greater, wider appeal for your story. Again, some people are totally okay with that. But like, for instance, having watched now more than half of Rise of the Merlin, and the Daily Wire is like, yes, we are bringing Christianity back to fantasy. I guarantee that if they were to actually sit down and have real conversations with a lot of people who bothered watching their show critically, they'd be like, but why don't you believe what we're telling you? And it's like, because I don't believe that way. Or I don't agree with you on these certain things. Or I don't feel like you actually were respectful to Christianity in this. You treated it like a magic system, or you treated it like just this weird given, and you shoehorned it in such a way that you robbed characters of their autonomy or of their identity. So yeah, I don't like it. But no, don't you realize that what I was telling you was absolutely right? And it's like, do you realize that what you're saying is absolutely ridiculous? It's pretty much how a conversation with those Daily Wire writers for Rise of the Merlin would probably go. Nope. Anyways, let me let out the Thaddeus Cadius. She is desiring to leave the office. Go forth and be free, cats. All right. Yeah, it's messy, the preaching. Exactly. Now then, here are some examples, some good examples of people who put their faith or their criticism of faith into stories that I would argue, for the most part, did it pretty well. I do have some caveats for Make the Exorcist Fall in Love and Wake Up Dead Man. But again, like Mistborn has so many phenomenal discussions about religion, the importance of religion, and all this other stuff. 1 second, sorry, I gotta go. Something came up. Hey, Comic Craft, thanks for dropping on by. Hopefully, you get a drop in later. Again, but yeah, Mistborn is phenomenal with how it deals with discussions of religion. I highly encourage people to go and read it because yeah, the discussions between believers and non-believers, how religion has been used positively and how it's been used negatively, and people's search for truth is all very well captured in the conversations and the actions of many of the characters. Like Sazed, like you might think that a character like Sazed, who is the guy who collects religions, he's like, oh yeah, I believe in all the religions. Like everyone's like, you're an idiot. You can only believe in one religion. He's like, why can't I believe in all religions? He has some amazing points. Sazed is such a great character for opening your eyes to the possibilities, the positive possibilities of religion. And then you also get to watch him kind of then have his crisis of faith, which is really gut-wrenching, but is so good for the end because, oh my gosh, I'm not going to spoil it, but Mistborn has one of the most beautiful endings of any trilogy I've ever read. It's so dang good, and so much of it comes back to Sazed's understanding of religion. Uh, Tiagan says, "I think people need to accept that in your face, uh, writing can be used to show the good of it. Like, why not adapt the religious fables the way that uh, like, why not adapt the religious fables? They're there for a reason. I mean, look at David. It's a great story and made a great animated movie. And there's a good example right there, the David movie. I've only seen clips of it. I have to say, I was pretty impressed with the clips I saw. Tycho says, also, the Amazing Digital Circus episode 8 is now up to 73 million views. Huzzah. I love how episode 8 just keeps getting more and more popular. I was a little bit worried there at first because of how episode 7 had such a massive drop off when compared to the other episodes. But which is just weird because I love episode 7. I think episode 7 is such a strong episode. It's so good. But yeah, not a lot of people kept on coming back to watch it or recommended it further to other people. So it's great to see that episode 8 is really bringing that curve up again, and just showing just how good the show is. That it, again, is bringing people back. Now then, another good example. Again, I do have a caveat for this: is make the Exorcist fall in love. Caveat number 1: if you do not like depictions of cannibalism or sexual assault, this series is not for you. Make the Exorcist fall in love really does not pull many of its punches. It is a very gritty story that engages in the nuances of what of basically what what Christianity, or mostly the writer's interpretation of the Catholic Church, has deemed as sins for 2,000 years, and and so you get some really interesting discussions going on within that story, and I think it's a really great way of showing how what people might immediately just say is sin is sin is sin, while it's a bad thing, what a lot of people might do. The series really encourages you to come to understand why people do what they do. Uh, and it also shows a lot of the religious leaders for the Catholic Church in a very positive light while dealing with some very heavy elements. Like, it goes there. It goes there. Especially like the most recent chapter. Holy dang. Yeah, it was just cold and brutal. But but again, like it's a series that really asks you to consider people, why they do what they do, why they believe what they believe. And that's something that I just don't see enough in any sort of story that wishes to be critical about organized religions and about people's beliefs. My one other caveat to make The Exorcist fall in love is that it's very clear that this was a story written by Japanese individuals who only have an outsider's understanding of the Catholic Church and of Christianity in general, because there are instances, if you're paying attention, where certain points are brought up by the seven demon lords that the main character, the exorcist, has to fight against as he's trying to protect the world from Satan's plan to kind of bring about the end of days before the second coming of Jesus. Like, basically, he's like, I'm going to jumpstart this before God can stop me, and I'll destroy the whole world. Ha ha. And anyways, in that quest to stop Satan, there's some really great moments of conversation between for instance, the Exorcist and Beelzebub, the demon lord of gluttony. Oh, that's so dark. It's such a dark fight, and it's so amazing. Also, conversations between the Exorcist and the demon lord of envy. Like, there's some really good conversations there. And the thing is, this is that as a Christian, that's where I can tell that the person who wrote this didn't really understand certain beliefs, because what the demon lords bring up and what the exorcist kind of struggles to like deal with, I'm like, oh, that's actually really easy to answer. There's a really good, easy answer to a lot of the stuff here. Which is that's the problem. If you're going to be critical about certain religion, you need to bring your A game with an understanding of that religion's tenets, with all of their different teachings, in order then to take them to task. Because if you can't, you're going to look a little silly. Now, Make the Exorcist Fall in Love manages to avoid a lot of those pitfalls because the characterization is so good, the action's usually pretty good, and where it takes you plot-wise is very interesting. But if you wish to have a theological debate with the characters, especially with the villains, Make the Exorcist Fall in Love, even a dummy from Sunday school could easily slap them around. Tiger says, in Murder Jones episode 7, there is a church underground about science people who experimented on Nori, who's possessed by the solver. Oh, yeah, that was a very interesting thing. Having a church underground where they where the scientists do really weird things. Yeah, I think that was just Liam Vickers having fun. That was absolutely just window dressing. That worked hauntingly well for the situation. Yes, they did release Murder Jones as a comic book. Oh, you got the first issue? Man, I haven't gotten it. I backed it. Where's my copy? Sorno says, Lars, in your opinion, how do you think that George handled the Faith of the Seven? For me, sometimes it comes off as dollar store evil church. Yes. Hey, and great to have you back, Common Craft. Stormcrow, I'm going to agree with you. George doesn't know what to actually do with faith, with church. And this comes down to him as a person. Because George R. Martin, as an individual, is very critical of organized religion. And that actually makes a lot of sense given the era that he came out of. He was an anti-war protester. He was very much a writer who looked at how the powers that be have screwed over the little people. And it's very easy to point at organized religion and say, look at you evil thing. I get it. I get where he's coming from. The thing is that, yeah, the way that he portrays the Faith of the Seven is very flat. This is where the shows do so much for George. Honestly, if you read the books without any understanding of the shows, ever watching the shows, you get such a different story. The shows actually try to do a whole lot to kind of save the books from their preachiness and their meandering nature. One second here, I gotta take a drink of water. Good water. Yeah, the shows really do a whole lot to try to make the Church of the Seven actually make more sense and be applicable to the people. And so like for instance, in the most recent series of Night of the Seven Kingdom, when what's his bucket Baratheon, the really cool guy, is knighting oh crud, the younger cousin who's now the Green Apple. I don't remember his name. I just remember he's now the Green Apple branch. When he knights him, he epically does the whole like, I knight you in the name of the Father and of the Mother and of the Warrior and so forth. And in that you actually get an understanding of what these gods are supposed to actually represent to the people. And that there's values attached to each one of these gods that are supposed to inspire people to be their best selves, which is not something that comes across easily in the books at all. And because the books look down on religion as a whole, yeah, George never really dwells there at all. So as a result, yeah, the Church of the Faith of the Seven, the Church of the Seven, is just there. It's just there to explain why certain things happen, and that's it. Other than that, like, it's just, oh, the High Sparrow's now here, which the High Sparrow in the books is way different than the High Sparrow in the show. Art says, oh, they released Murdron. Okay, I got that. Okay, Murdron's comic doesn't have any extra content. I think it's supposed to have some variations which could also lead to some extra content. I just don't know because I haven't yet had a chance to read it. An interesting take on religion I've seen is in Pathfinder 2E and Starfinder 2E, especially after the Divine Mysteries book. Gods can be worshipped in many ways, yet the gods are not affected by faith directly. A god can be influenced by their followers, but only in a more mundane way, like the evil goddess who, after the death of her entire pantheon and her worshippers begging for help for centuries, turned her good over time. That's interesting. That's interesting. And thinking about like how people can influence gods is actually something that I've kind of wanted to explore in another books, in another story of mine. So like I like hearing that, reading them, like that's really cool. I like that. I think it's a neat concept. For other people, it's like no, because gods aren't supposed to change, and it's fantasy. So again, you can kind of do whatever you want with your own fantasy religion. You can have fun with it. That's the whole point. Or says, I'm not sure if it has extra content as I saw it and just grabbed it off the shelf. Issues 1 and 2 are actually out this week. Fantastic. Now then, my second example of a good representation of faith and of church is in Wake Up Dead Man. Now, if you had asked me about Wake Up Dead Man immediately after watching the movie, I would have disagreed. My opinion on it has changed after mulling it over. I still do not like the road to Damascus scene at the end of the movie. It literally comes out of nowhere and it's not justified. It isn't. Thematically, it makes sense. Plot-wise and character-wise, it does not work. So that's my big caveat to Wake Up Dead Man, is that the road to Damascus scene just, it's so out of place. However, that being said, the movie does a great job of having that communication that TV Ken has already brought up of a good example of faith versus a bad example. As you have two priests, one who is just truly diabolical. He's hands down evil. He really is. He's such a horrible person. And then you have a good priest who himself, like, he joined the church and became a man of the cloth because he murdered someone. And he's like, oh my gosh, I did something so bad. And so after serving his time, he absolutely reformed himself, and he's trying to, as a priest, give people the belonging that they need, the love that they need, the direction that they need, so that way they never become like he was. Because he wants to save people from their worst selves. And so you've got these two different takes on religion, and then you have Monsieur Leblanc, the detective, who is an atheist who hates organized religion. And so he gets brought into the conversation as well, and you actually get some pretty good back and forth between him and the good priest. And one of the things that I really like is how this is where I give Rian Johnson some real credit. Like, you guys have heard me before. I have torn into Rian Johnson for the last Jedi. I absolutely have. But Rian Johnson actually did a really good job of writing that conversation between faith and atheism in Wake Up Dead Man, where both sides get in their digs. They both win their points, but normally people would say, yes, that means that faith has lost, because the moment that you score any points against organized religion, therefore it is lost. Ha! But no, the movie actually treats the ending of the story as a major victory for the priest, for the good priest, because his faith is confirmed by the actions of the characters in the story. And so his faith has been restored and confirmed, and he's now ready to be the man that the community needs to lead out of this horrible circumstance that the evil priest has created. Whereas LeBlanc, he's earned a respect for the priest, but he's not been converted. And that's okay. That's okay to have those diverging opinions, to respect both. And that shows a great deal of respect, restraint, and nuance on the part of Rian Johnson that, in all honesty, I've not seen in any other story that he's made, at least that I have seen of his work. So that was that was very impressive to me. So yeah, that's that right there is my caveat. The road to Damascus scene does not work, but the rest of the movie is just great, at least in my opinion. Uh, then Conqueror says, like faith shaping a god is something pointed out to be exclusive to goblin gods only because goblins were created from divine blood, so they can invest objects and create and creatures with collective divinity. I mean, it says, I guess you'll hate the ending of Gosei Sentai Dairenger. Maybe. I haven't seen it yet. So maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. Commoncraft also defined mysteries, also brought to Pathfinder the idea of covenants. A bunch of powerful beings with similar goals can join forces and give powers to clerics and champions like gods. Gods can be worshipped as a part of pantheons, which changes the type of benefit they give to a favored follower. Divine mysteries also has things like sayings used by followers of a given god, day of the week, preferred color, animal, and common followers in relationship with other gods. So really going into the details of these gods, which again is good. If you're going to have religion be a major element within any sort of story or within an open world that people can go in and tell their own stories with, like Pathfinder, you want to be able to provide as many elements and details and histories as possible in order to allow faith to actually have meaning within that world, or at least building blocks that the players can work with to create meaning within their game. So yeah, that's really great. Now then, ah, after an hour and a half of all that discussion, I mean, we've actually already had some discussions about Deltarune. What about Deltarune? Has Toby Fox just created some pretty cool window dressing with the prophecy and the Church of the Angel? Woo! Or has he actually managed to create a bona fide fictitious religion that engages us as the audience, that makes us think, that makes us reflect, that makes us say, ah, yes, I agree with that, and I don't agree with that, and I now see what Toby's doing with this story. I see why Toby has put this religion in there. Or is that something that he has succeeded in doing, or has he fallen short of the mark? So yeah, this is where I really want to hear back from you guys, because going through this, I definitely have my opinions, but I have now provided you with the context clues, with the education, with the points to fall back on. So, has Toby Fox succeeded? Is the Church of the Angel a good fictional religion? And not like, oh, it promotes goodness, but is it well written? Or is it just window dressing? Is it just there? There to help pad out stuff in the story? That's why I want to hear from you guys now in the comments. Commoncraft says there's also goofy stuff like Razmir is Razmir the living god, a wizard pretending to be a god. Players can join his cult and have to learn special techniques to force clerics' abilities to work with false gods. Interesting stuff there. Stormcrow says researching Appalachian folklore, it's fascinating to see how Christianity and all the hodgepodge of Native Americans coalesce into the Appalachian Mountains we have today. It is fascinating. And again, one of the things that I said early on is that no church or religion, no faith is immutable. It will change and evolve over time, and a lot of that normally does come from where you're at and the people that are in that region, and what else is also there. Yeah, no, Christianity in the Americas have absolutely been shaped by the region and by the peoples who are also there. My way of saying that I wish more writers had fun off shoots of Church of Dragon Gods and the cool orc offshoots of that. Hey, go forth and write, go forth and create. If you're not finding it in fiction, sometimes you just got to do it yourself. Conquer says when things like fake healing that goes away and capstone ability that says you can rival Razmir, you get it one level higher than Razmir's canon level. Interesting stuff. Fake healing. I healed you. It's only just temporary hit points. It'll all go away later. All right, take another drink of water right there. All right, but yeah. So again, what about Deltarune, y'all? What are your thoughts? And don't worry. There's like there's no real right or wrong answer here. This is figuring out how we interact with what a writer has presented to us and coming to determine for ourselves whether that element has been written well or not. And I think you might be surprised when I finally share my opinion is that I think that like it certainly has my opinion certainly has changed as I have interacted more with this particular topic and looked at what Toby Fox has done. Now, pop back on over here, back to the church. Whoop. Oh, yeah, let's get us back there. Susie, pretend to blow out your candle. No, Susie, don't. Happy birthday, loser. Concraft says, I think the fact that the chapter based on a church is the first one changed the battle music must mean something. Oh, so you're saying where the battle music just changed overall? Okay, I got it right there. It was a little it was a little wonkily worded there at first. But yeah, no, there's definitely some interesting meaning there. I agree with that. Damn it, Lars, you got me thinking again. But would it be too insane to say that Dark Worlds were more powerful in the Stone Age of the Deltarune universe? I would argue that it probably didn't exist in the Stone Age, unless it really, really goes back that far that the star fell. We don't know. But I would actually say no. I would say the Dark Worlds are actually not stronger in the Dark Age, because the more that you know, and the more that inspires the more that inspires your imagination, the far more variety you can get in the Dark Worlds. Art says, I think it's a good replication of what religion means to those who live in the Northeast. He's got the community spirit down pat, and I absolutely agree with that. The battle music in Deltarune never changed before, but in Chapter 4, it changed. Mm-hmm. Yep. Which definitely represents, I'd argue, the shift in the story. Things are moving in a whole new and unique way from this point on. So, of the shadows cutting deep and the heroes that save us, heaven knows the beauty of the soul. And we weep. Oh, how we weep to the majesty and pray we not forget the tale of Deltarune. Do you think there could be a dark world of the game Noel plays? Victor the Lore Seeker, I think that was actually supposed to be. I mean, well, we know based off what Gerson says that we're basically playing through the game just differently, and we've already played through a sanitized version of Dragon Blazers by playing the sword routes in Chapter 3. Which I know is kind of funny to say that it's a sanitized version, but it's what Tenna was messing around with. But there's a possibility that we could experience Dragon Blazers the game as the series progresses. I think that'd be really cool. But I think the closest that we might ever get to Dragon Blazers was actually Chapter 1. Some people think that the end will be Dark Worlds being sealed away, but the ending of the prophecy we see saying about worlds, plural, being saved implies Dark Worlds matter despite what Ralsei says. Well, exactly. It would say the Dark Worlds do matter. They are real. And Ralsei's particular interpretation of the Dark Worlds and where they exist within the greater reality of the Deltarune universe is effectively his way of trying to come to grips with the fact that the prophecy demands that horrible things will happen. And so he's trying to prep Chris and the player and Susie by saying, just forget about it. Just play through. Just go through. Because horrible things will happen. And by trying to find a way around said horrible things, um, like it just comes to them belittling himself, belittling the dark world, which is the wrong way to think. One thing I noted in Deltarune is that the player's soul seems to be getting more powerful. Like chapter 1, we have no power. Chapter 2, we can start weird route. Chapter 3, we start determining Tenna's fate. In chapter 4, we get a full sequence away from Chris, and we can determine whether or not Chris's friendship with Ralsei improves. And yes, and I mean that is something that was promised to us in the beginning of the game. We just didn't understand what it meant when Gaster invited us to become a part of his experiments. Sora says, so Lars, with the imagination prerequisite for Dark Worlds, one can make an argument that things like Celtic, Greek, and yokai would have originated from those countries' Dark Worlds? No, actually. More like the Dark Worlds could give shape and form to what people believed in. Because as opposed to the realms of imagination, one things I write, where the realms help to inspire what people think and do in reality, and how then reality helps them to feed the realms of imagination equally, you don't have that in Deltarune. Rather, the Dark World is a reflection of the person who opens the Dark Fountain. And the Dark World is just waiting for people to give it form. Now then, there is always a history to the Dark World, which implies that without Lighteners, there are still things that happen, but we just don't yet understand that particular history, that particular mechanic. But it is made perfectly clear that the Dark Worlds are a reflection of the one who opens the fountain, rather than the Dark World feeding and informing the Light World, which is one of the reasons why Ralsei can justify, to a certain extent, neglecting the Dark World and underplaying it, underselling it, so that way we don't become too connected to something that we are being set up to lose. So that's important to note. One thing to note is that Spamton somehow sent spam mail to Noel in the Light World. So it implies that Darkners already exist on some level, especially with the church having Darkners that don't fit manifest as statues rather than be non-existent. So yes, again, like there's something that we are missing about how the Dark World can exist without Lighteners immediately interacting with it, how there is its own history and everything. But whenever we do enter into a Dark World, that Dark World is always a manifestation of the one who opened the fountain. And that's like, oh, okay, that's pretty big. Now then, to bring it back around to religion, I think art, like I want to actually come back to what Art said about how it is a good how the church is presented is a good representation of what you can find in the Northeast, and I would even argue in all corners of the United States, especially small towns unified by religion. I would also say this, having lived in some small towns in Europe. Same thing goes for there. It's just the cultures may be different, the religions may be different, but the patterns remain the same. If you live in a small town that's unified by a particular faith, you know what this is like. This church provides identity and community to the believers, even if they don't necessarily really get into the prophecy of the Deltarune. Like Caddy absolutely botches her sermon on the prophecy. She's more interested in that super fine, sexy Prince of the Dark. Other than that, she doesn't really care. But that's okay, because the church is giving her what she actually herself feels that she needs. Again, that community and that belonging. For Chris and for Susie, it's the juice. It's absolutely the juice, which is an understanding of their world and where they belong in it. They both feel like outsiders in this church. They're not like, yes, no, I absolutely believe in the angel and all that. Susie's here because she's going along with Chris. Chris is here because Toriel said so, and they're using the opportunity to get information about what's been going on in town, about the shelter, uh, and all that good jazz, or all that bad jazz, really. And so Chris and Susie are not there out of any semblance of faith. But if you decide, for instance, to go and have your time at QC's diner with Susie, that restores Chris's sense of belonging, their sense of community in hometown, because that is what they always did with their family, and then later with Azriel when the family splits. Not gonna lie, listening to Caddy give the sermon made me feel so bad for Azzy. The poor goat had to take that moron to prom. Oh, I can't wait for the full story on that. I really do believe that we're going to get the story behind that prom date in chapter 5. Again, my reasoning for that is because of Miss Mizzle, and learning about how we can talk to her friend who is a blue flower, and a preserved flower, a token given to a lady. I like it's a big thing. The dance. The dance is coming up. The dance meant something. There is drama in the past with between Azriel, Caddy, and Braddy, and somehow Des plays a role in all of this. We need to know what's going on there. I think it's something big that's going to be revealed. At least that's my hope. But maybe I'm just on Miss Mizzle copium. I think Comcast says, I think there's an implication that the light world is for us a type of dark world. In my fanfic, one thing that I want to touch is how the human gods are like compared with the transformer gods of Primus and Unicron, specifically as the Lancer gods, also known as Monis entities, seem to reflect the culture that birthed them. Mentat Aun matches the beliefs of the Onic people, being borderline Christian-like in some ways, while RA was made by the fascist Imperium wannabe Secom, and is a very oppressive, if even seemingly well-meaning to humans entity, even long after Secom ended. Very interesting. But yeah, so coming back into Church of the Angel, the Church of the Angel absolutely creates a sense of community and identity for everyone in hometown. The interesting thing is that according to Father Alvin, there's really nothing in the way of commandments because there's no sins. And so there's actually no sense of order. That is very interesting. So really what the church is doing is the church is providing, again, kind of just an anchor for the community, which then makes good sense why Father Alvin feels so much weight based on his decisions and what he seemingly knows is going on, because he is a leader of the community. And whatever has happened in his past, what he knows about Gerson and the adventure of the Lord of the Hammer and these dark things that are happening in town, the thing is that whatever choice he makes is going to have ripple effects on the community. Again, the church does not provide order. Instead, it provides community and identity. And he, as the leader, if he goes along with the prophecy is going to be fulfilled. Woohoo! Yay! What we believed in came to pass. Well, now what? Or what if that thing that came to pass causes great harm to his community, to his congregation? Oh, there's a real matter there. What if he tries to stop what's going on? Would that be interfering with the faith? And then suddenly everything about the faith starts becoming a lie. Father Alvin is actually placed into a very tenuous, awful situation, because as the leader of this church, if that leadership fails, then the church fails as well. And there goes the identity and the community that it establishes in hometown. So again, I have to I'll say this. At first I thought that Toby Fox had just created some fun window dressing with the Church of the Angel, but even without like some deep understanding of lore and beliefs, he has made it very clear that this is a great replica, a great representation of what a small town community would be like, of how the church again is that anchor, it's a bedrock. And if that goes, oh, oh, things will happen. And what happens at the end of chapter 4? The church is wrecked. Father Alvin is nowhere to be found. And if I'm right, Father Alvin got picked up by the Roaring Knight and got taken on over to the shelter. So that breaks the bedrock of this community. What does that mean going forward in the story? I'm curious. I'm so excited for chapter 5, guys. um, Art says it's sort of stability for the people. Exactly. Document says Clara is now Clara and the Below now has $303,000 for Kickstarter, and that's so awesome. Oh, it's so awesome, and I'm excited to see what Matt Brawley does as an indie creator now, with all the experience that he's had at Disney, working on Gravity Falls and running his own show Amphibia. I've got big hopes for that guy. Comcraft says one of the mechs associated with followers of RA is the Manticore. All mechs specialized in self-destruction, specifically with the pilot inside. If the pilot isn't inside, it cannot explode. Then Darkest State says, "No, not Alvin. I know, but I'm pretty certain the Father Alvin got kidnapped on over to the shelter." That's been my strong working theory. One of my reasons for that is because, like, okay, what exactly has, like, I don't think that Father Alvin just picked up and left at all. Like, it's implied that he probably lives at the church, or he spends most of his time at the church. He's missing. The place is torn up. And the door that you see right here, right now, where Chris is speaking to Father Alvin, that door, when you try to interact with it after the church gets torn to pieces, you cannot go through it. Not because it's locked, but because you're just told that there's no reason to open it, which is ominous in the extreme, which very likely means that Des has Father Alvin behind that door and is just waiting to spirit him away to the shelter. That is my working theory right now, and I feel pretty confident in that. So Stormcrow says, okay, so nothing bad against Deltarune here, but I find the whole no sin thing for the Church of the Angel a bit weird. There had to be a kind of thing that reinforces behaviors that conforms. So here's the thing about the about the hometown community, as we were able to interact with it. Like, again, there's no sin. And it's never been brought up by anyone other than Azrael that they believe in sin. Except for how Chris, through their interactions, especially in the sword route, you can get that sense of, from like Undertale, your sins climbed up your back. Like chapter 3 re-invokes that. And so what we kind of get an understanding of is that while you're not condemned one way or the other for right or wrong, if you're not condemned for doing wrong in the Church of the Angel, wrong as a concept still exists. And so Toriel, for instance, is just an overbearing mother because she wants what's absolutely best and she wants what's right, and you're going to live up to that. The church also provides a certain standard to live up to. Like, you don't need sins to have standards. And that all comes around to wanting to belong. The church helps to cement the kind of community that hometown has and your ability to belong. If you are not a part of how the church leadership lives, you don't belong within that community. And in a small town, if you don't belong, then you're effectively ostracized. and that can be incredibly painful. So just by the fact that they're in a small town with a church that controls the view and identity of the community, there is inherently a desire and a motivation to conform lest you no longer belong. Now then, again, that flies in the face of the order that the church should bring to that any stabilized church should bring. And so, yeah, that's a little interesting. It doesn't quite fit, and you can definitely chalk that up as a mark against Toby's writing of the church. But it is kind of interesting because in a way, it also conforms with what Gerson tries to teach. It doesn't matter what you choose, so long as you choose. And the fallen star has no reason to give you bound rules. Rather, the fallen star just has to show you opportunity, show you power to make you fearfully or willingly choose to go along with its prophecy. So that's something to consider there. Let me catch up with some things you guys have written here. Ba-ba-da-ba-da. And Deltarune, one thing I find interesting is how people have the prophecy in their Bibles, but nobody in the cast, not even Noel, who's saying the prophecy, didn't recognize when it was happening. Like they know the prophecy, but doesn't know it, if you get my meaning. And Stormcrow says to Comcraft, Gaster's photo editing people's memories in real time. Comcraft says Ralsei tells about the roaring in front of Noel and Birdley, and there were no signs of recognition on them, though the prophecy from their own religion describes the roaring. Maybe Stormcrow, but Fat sort of finds that. But Gaster doesn't come across as malicious to me. He straight up cheers us and tells us we can do it if we die to the knight's final attack. So here's what is actually told to us in game, by Ralsei and by Gaster, and by what we can read on the walls. And it is that the church does not have the full prophecy. They don't. The church is operating on limited information. The full prophecy is reflected in the dark world, where Ralsei knows it, and where Gerson knows it. But Gerson said, screw that. And as we learn from his recounting of the adventures of the Lord of the Hammer, it plays into everything that the prophecy detailed. And as I talked about in my video with like Gerson trying to help Susie out, it's Gerson actually stops at one point telling her the information that she really needs. Because if you tell people everything, that then informs their choices. And let's simplify this a little bit here. Let's try to make this a little bit more applicable. So imagine you got a 4-year-old kid, and that said 4-year-old kid is watching as their parents are making some delicious chocolate chip cookies coming fresh out of the oven. Now then, if the parents say, don't touch those cookies, they're really hot right now, the kid will either then choose to obey the parents and not touch the cookies because they trust their parents, or the kid will be mischievous and be like, I was told no, therefore I want that cookie, and will then go and touch the cookies. The kid's choice, no matter what the kid chooses to do, has now been informed by the parent saying, don't touch the cookies are hot. What Gerson sets up Susie to do is Susie's this proverbial kid in the kitchen watching as the cookies are made, and the parent doesn't say anything. So there's the tantalizing cookies, or there's so many other things that you could do. And the parent, rather than cautioning about the cookies, the parent then just says, "Go on, Susie, do what you want to do." Susie could burn her hands trying to get those cookies. Susie could, despite burning her hands, cram those cookies in her mouth. Susie could decide to not touch those cookies. Susie could decide, I'm going to go look in the refrigerator and I'm going to guzzle all the chocolate milk. Susie could decide, I'm going to go play baseball and break the kitchen window. Susie could decide to go play Dragon Lancers. Susie could decide that she's going to go out and gather flowers. Whatever it is, Susie's free to choose because the parent didn't give her information. And so whatever choice she makes is purely her choice. So that is basically the situation that we've got with the prophecy and with what Gerson is trying to do. Gerson does not give Susie any important information that informs the future. Gerson gives her knowledge about the past. Because by understanding the past, she can make sense of her present. And by making sense of her present, she's empowered to do whatever she chooses to do. And so Susie is totally free. She's been taught, she's been empowered, but she's not been given any information about the future beyond what the prophecy has already told her. And Gerson's like, screw that. Forget that. What do you want? What do you want? And she's like, I just want the good times never end. He's like, fantastic. You've chosen eternity. Now make it happen. And by doing that, she's the girl in the kitchen with the hot cookies, and she can now do whatever she wants. She can try to eat those cookies. She can wait to eat those cookies. She can leave the cookies alone, go somewhere else. She can guzzle the chocolate milk. She can make a mess in the kitchen. She can go outside. She can play. She can go outside, gather flowers. She can do whatever she wants. She is absolutely free, and her choice is not contingent upon the cookies. Whereas the prophecy is giving her information. The prophecy is forcing her hand. And so I hope that makes a little bit of sense right there. By trying to bring it down to kid in the kitchen, parent with the cookies. And yeah, so there was my waffle there. Darkest Adrian says, Commoncraft, about the Noel thing, the church also believes that anyone can be a hero. Ah, yes. Well, thank you, All Might. You too, Noel, can be a hero. Cookie nostalgia. Oh, yes. I want to make some cookies so bad. I should do that. I should do that for tomorrow. Okay, Lars, hear me out. Gerson Boom is Tolkien cool, but where the hell is the Deltarune version of H.P. Lovecraft or George R.R. Martin? There has to be some grimdark authors that know about dark worlds. Maybe that's what Azrael's been doing in college all this time is meeting up with those grimdark authors as he majors in creative storytelling. Comcraft says, I see what you mean, Lars, but I think that the hot cookies is a bit of a bad example. Tell me why. Tell me why it's a bad example. I want to know, so that way I can see if I agree and must change my analogy or not. Wait, Noel did recognize Ralsei. It could be that he resembles Azrael, but since Caddy did mention the prince having horns, a bit crack theory, I know, but when you talked about how Birdly and Noel having not heard of the roaring, something about the chat clicked. Interesting. Guzzle chalky malk. The malk. I'm going to drink the malk. Conquer says, but I remember that I once wondered how in a crossover, how characters from Percy Jackson would react to the prophecy from Deltarune. A prophecy so specific, it says things like the person will say this thing. It would terrify them to see a prophecy so detailed. Yes, the more detailed a prophecy is, the more horrifying it is. Now then. I'll throw this on out here. uh, because like thinking of just like highly detailed prophecies. So I was shared this interpretation of of apocryphal. So if you know your Bible and you know the Apocrypha are the books that no one can actually determine if they were truly quote unquote inspired scripture, like that actual prophets wrote them down, or if they're just things that were made up by chroniclers way after the fact, or that chroniclers really messed around with the stuff that had been written. So in any case, so I was shared this prophecy by people of like how they're like, oh, don't you realize that here in the Apocrypha, it has already said what will happen. And there was like this book, this person had written this book. He's like, because of my deep understanding of the Apocrypha, I now know what will happen. You see, what will happen is this, and this is going back to the 2024 U.S. election. It was the two-headed eagle. After so many amazing feathers on one side, we'll have all of these crippled feathers on the other, and and it's like Biden will die. Kamala Harris will then become the vice president. She'll then become president. She will then lose to Trump. Trump will be assassinated. Then after that, this other person will take over. They will be assassinated, and it will go on until the 10th president, and then Jesus will come again. And I remember being presented that prophecy, reading. I was like, wow, that is incredibly accurate. Not accurate, incredibly detailed for something that's an interpretation of an ancient apocryphal prophecy. So, what happens if Biden doesn't die in office? And just like the blank stares at first. Well, it could then mean someone else, and I'm just like, uh huh. Again, knowing, and I'm just like, and I was like, well, if you actually look into who supposedly wrote this prophecy, and at the time that they wrote it, this is actually more so a prophecy about the split of Alexander the Great's empire into the Seleucids and the Politamics, and how they will fight against each other. And maybe that's what the prophecy is all about, if it is real. And just again, the blank stares are like, maybe. Read more, Lars, read more. There's so much more about that prophecy. And I'm like, uh huh. Okay, we're closing this. Here we are now in 2026. The world is very different than what that prophecy claimed. Again, if we were going to take it as the gospel truth, what was written anciently in the Apocrypha, very, very likely it was more a prophecy about, again, the splitting of Alexander the Great's empire, and how it would war against itself, and how you have this lineage of good, powerful kings that would then eventually become broken and weak. And so you're like, oh, okay, that actually works pretty well if you know your history. So, yeah, there you go. Did someone say Apocrypha? Yes, I did. Okay, so Comcraft says, okay, so hot cookies is a bit of a bad example, because by leaving hot cookies without saying anything to Susie in the scenario would be uninformed, it would be irresponsible, and any harm to her would be the adult's responsibility. And Comicraft, I 100% agree that any parent who does not tell their kid that the cookies coming right out of the oven are hot and you shouldn't touch them is not practicing good parenting. I 100% agree with that. But by the parent not telling Susie anything about the status of the cookies being way too hot for her to handle, that's dangerous. Again, it leaves Susie entirely free. But I see what you're saying, and maybe I need to look. Maybe I need to look for another for another analogy that's a little bit more considerate to the adult or to whoever else is interacting with the Susie stand-in. But again, I absolutely agree with you on that point. Stormcrest says, nah, Lars, as he is currently having some cool noir detective adventure in college with one night stands and developing alcohol addiction. He misses death so much. Oof. Oof. You know what? You know what? Write that. This reminds me of the discussion of the heroes of the horses, not the heroes, the horses prophecy from Hunter the Parenting. Oh my gosh, Hunter the Parenting. Some people think it's predicting events from before the prophecy was made, which is so dumb. Dory says there is one apocryphal account about Susanna and the elders, and it's about a married woman who gets accused of adultery by two guys who wanted to know her, for lack of a better term. Susanna gets arrested, but Daniel saves her by interrogating the elders and exposing their lies. Susanna, does that name sound familiar to you? Oh, Susanna, oh, don't you cry for me. Susie. Oh, Susan. TV account. Clara and the Below got another stretch goal, the Rat musical and emo rock song. Yeah, I know. I saw the emo rock song. That's fantastic. I'm so looking forward when he's all think like old school Evanescence. I'm all like, you have sold me. You have sold me, Matt. I have full confidence in you. Actually, here's the thing. I have full confidence in Matt pulling off Clara and the Below. That was just extra whipped cream and cherries on top of the cake. But yeah. So now let's see where we're going from there. Prophecies. Oh yeah. So what? Yeah. How the people in hometown don't really have the prophecy. They don't have the full prophecy, and it's true. They don't have the full prophecy, which I think this is so. If allow me to now mold my tinfoil hat and place it on my head. And Susie ran so fast to get that television set from Chris's place. To allow me to spin my own tinfoil hat here for a moment. So the falling star that we're introduced to in chapter 4, again, if you go looking, you have to go looking in order to find that tidbit. But the falling star who fell from the heavens cried a river of glass, of dark glass. I think that star is trying to get back home. It wants to get back into the heavens. Again, like the coming of angels heaven. Like what? Like at first it's like, what the heck does that mean? The star returning home, or home coming to the star, one way or the other. This is all about the return, and the return is going to be devastating. It's going to cause so much damage because it's not what's supposed to happen. It's effectively unnatural. But the star wants it to happen. The star has now basically put forward how things will happen. And I think that the star, either through the power of actually being able to look into the future or plotting it out like, yes, in order to create the champions who will bring about Angel's Heaven, I need these things to happen. Therefore, I need these particular people. I need these people to go into the dark world. These things must happen in this kind of way. And that will lead them to then do what I want. That is probably what's happening here. Now then, here's the problem, though. If you tell people exactly what you want to have happen, and part of what you're prescribing must happen involves a lot of destruction, death, and pain, people are not going to want to do it unless they are promised really great things. The problem is that the Church of the Angel, and anything about the prophecy that we've so far seen, doesn't seem to suggest that there is some great, amazing salvation on the other end. It's just the saving of the worlds. But why would you want to bother saving the worlds if you could even avoid the coming of Angel's Heaven in any kind of way? So what I think probably happened is that the prophecy, the true prophecy, is basically the game plan. But the prophecy that was then communicated to the Lightners was the hook, the bait to get them to believe, and then prime a future generation to fulfill the plan of the star. That's my tinfoil hat theory going on right there. I have no actual canonical basis for this, other than just a handful of little tidbits across the chapters that honestly could mean almost anything else. All right. Darkest Adrian says, "What if Toby knew about that and gave Susie her name because of that account?" Maybe. Conqueror says, like, people were like, we learned this thing about this evil father from over a century ago. That must be the patriarch from the prophecy. I think that is just straight up dumb. As Stormcrow says, gonna go to bed now. Before I leave, you all, I need you to consider this. As Rosalind calls, there's a chance that he meets Deltarune's Chara. Is it considered incest if they date? No, because they're not related. There you go. Why are you asking these horrible anime and more specifically weird manga scenario questions? Ugh. Oh my gosh, I don't know how many times I've seen it where it's all like, wait, you're just my cousin? Wait, we're not actually related? Oh, but I thought you were my sister this whole time. Stepladder time it is. It's like, oh, why Japan? Why are you like this? Darkest Daydreams. That's not only the biblical Susanna, though. One of Jesus' followers in his ministry was also named Susanna. And then you have the Chris and Noel's names. Side note, Susanna was said to have been healed of evil spirits and infirmities before following Jesus. Seems eerily similar to Susie being bad, turning good, and joining the fun gang. There are some correlations there. It'd be interesting it would honestly be very interesting to find out from Toby Fox how much of various like established religions and certain cultures and whatnot he readily borrowed from. And over on our Discord, I've actually brought up, like, I'm really interested in seeing how the festival plays out. Like, because it's been brought up, like, it might be an amalgamation of all these different human festivals, like Halloween, Christmas, and Easter. But beyond just simply what they're celebrating, the question is how they're celebrating it. Because Toby Fox also draws a lot of inspiration from Japanese culture. The Japanese have plenty of their own festivals and the way that they celebrate those festivals. It'd be very interesting to see if he actually incorporates kind of Western and Eastern mentalities of festivals into one, and then presents us with that in Deltarune. Like, I don't know how it's going to play out. We know the festival is coming. It'll be very interesting to see how it looks and how it looks, how he decides to execute it. That's what I'm very much interested in seeing him try to pull off and do. So let's see here. But yeah, I think to kind of sum up my thoughts, at least my personal thoughts and opinions with the Church of the Angel and everything, I think that Toby Fox was really, like, Toby Fox knew that he wanted to recreate that small town feel and understood the importance of a church, of a faith in most small town communities, of identity, of community, of belonging. The church also then becomes a great vessel for the prophecy. And there's a lot of things that are tied into religion. Like, it's a great trope for him to utilize, a great setting as well for him to utilize in order to challenge characters' perceptions of freedom, because of what comes with a lot of, like, because of how a lot of people just view religion, especially organized religion in general, and to then have it within the precincts of a church. No, you're free. Go forth and be free. I think that's kind of what he's playing around here with. Like, the Church of the Angel could really be far more fleshed out. It really could be. But with what he has presented so far, it serves its purpose. And this is one of the reasons why I have there in the lesson, whatever you want to do with your churches, with your faiths and belief systems and your own fictional worlds, that's a-okay. You do what you want. And so, like, Toby Fox doesn't need to create this vastly complex religious system in order for it to work. He doesn't. It just has to do what it needs to do for the story, which it does. The nice thing is that there's some layers of complexity and nuance to it that are rather interesting. And as we've already had discussions here tonight with you guys, there are questions to have. What about this whole absence of sin thing? Conformity? What is it that people actually like really believe in? Also, why is it that why are they missing why are they missing the full prophecy, even though this is supposed to be part of their religion? We are getting questions. We're engaging with the story even more. So again, it's doing what it's supposed to do. And so this is an example of where you don't need to overcomplicate, overthink your religious systems in order to make them work for your story. You absolutely don't have to. You don't need to create the Catholic Church from whole cloth for your own story in order for a fictitious religion to work. But you need to know what you're doing with it, and then you need to do it well. And you also, to a certain degree, need to understand how other people are also going to perceive and interact with that religion. If you don't do that, it starts falling incredibly flat. And this is where it leads me into having the chance to have a rant real quick before we wrap up tonight. But before I do that rant, let me let me catch up with some things you guys wrote right here. Darkest Atrium says, I'm making a whole theory with a section or two dedicated to the religious connections with Susie's name. It's not done yet, but I'd love to share what I have so far on the Discord server. By all means, go ahead and share. It also mentions a theory you may be familiar with. Lars. Very interesting. One thing, and Conquest says, one thing I also wanted to explore was an idea of an isekai and the relationship between a person and the deities they once believed purely fictional, like a Pathfinder fanfic. Real world Earth exists in Pathfinder, and people from Galarian and the main world of Pathfinder visited Earth once before. Like they were hired by actual Baba Yaga to kill her grandson, the historical figure Rasputin, and real life Anastasia is in Golarion right now in the lore of the setting, and she rules the nation. So a person from our world being isekai to Pathfinder is possible in lore. Indeed. So then, having caught up there, let me share one more. I'm going to share one more thing before we end tonight. Let me there we are. Get that good live footage. Okay. So rant about the rise of Merlin and its use of Christianity. Again, as I said in my previous review for episodes 1 through 2, I have no problem with a fantasy story, or high fantasy story using Christianity, and especially for the story of King Arthur, who was in England, who would have lived at the time of Christianity on the rise in the British Isles. Of course, it works perfectly fine. Plus, on top of that, the people who wrote the sagas of King Arthur before the Canterbury Tales. Canterbury Tales is French fan fiction of King Arthur. Just know that. They also Christianized King Arthur, the legends of King Arthur. So you get it. You get all of that. That's totally fine. So if the Daily Wire wants to focus more on the Christian side of King Arthur's story, then by all means. However, here's my however here. If you also decide to then introduce all of these other gods who all have power in this world, who can all do different things and have champions and sorcerers and all this other stuff, you need to explain what the heck the Christian God is doing in this mix. The reason why I say that is because the Christian God is supposed to be the one and only true God. So does that mean that all these other gods are like usurpers from another universe? Does that mean that these are all failed creations of God? Are these like fallen angels who then became devils, who then are setting themselves up as gods? Like, what the heck is going on here? This stuff is never explained, nor is it explored in any sort of detail thus far, and I've already watched 4 episodes in. The problem is this, is that if you decide to make Taliesin, the main character of the first 2 episodes, suddenly be all like, the other gods are all false. The Christian God is the true God. I will now convert, so that way I may boink Karis. Aha! In the manner of the Christians. And I am not exaggerating. That is literally in episode 2, where he's like, I want to boink, but we must do it in the manner of the Christians. We must be baptized and then married, and then we can boink. Yes, that's absolutely what's going on here. So it's the writers very clearly being all like, yes, sex is great, but you must do it as a Christian and as married. So do it that way. Anyway, anywho's, and okay then, fine. You wanted to insert your Christian message into there, fine. The problem is that Taliesin is the bard and the champion of the gods, of all the old gods of the Britons, and not of the Christian God. So that means that we need to have some reconciliation here. Why does he decide to convert to Christianity? That's never explained. It's just, I had a miracle, like Saul going to Damascus, and now I've now memorized the entire Bible after staring into the sun. Yes, that is what happens in the show. And so now he's convinced of it because God put the Bible into his brain, not because of any sort of actual conversion. Because here's the thing. There are tons of people who know the Bible who don't believe in God. And so it's like, okay, then, so you need to understand, what is it about the Bible, about the Christian God, that changes Taliesin's way of seeing himself and the world and making him want to convert? What is it? Is it the promise of eternal life, and for those who believe in Christ? Is it the forgiveness of sins? Is it the Christian's idealized version of a united, beautified world? Like, what is it? Tell us. But they never do. And so Taliesin's conversion doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. It's just, he had a miracle. He has memorized the Bible by staring into the sun. He is now converted. Ha! And now he will boink after the manner of the Christians. Which, again, it's just so dumb. It's so dumb. Charis also has no reason to be converted to a religion that she's never heard of until 2 monks mistook her when she is half naked as the Virgin Mary. It makes no sense. And they never explain who the Virgin Mary is to her. They never explain who God is to her. They never explain who Christ is to her. She's like, okay, because I want to boink Taliesin, I will now be converted. That's not good conversion. And speaking as someone who served a mission for 2 years to teach people about my faith, I can tell you this: that is not a basis for conversion. That does not hold. That does not work. I'm sorry. It's just like writers. Did you not think this through here a little bit more? And so suddenly all these other people are like, oh, if Taliesin says that God is the true God, then that's it. They're all like, but wait a second, who's God here? Because you guys have multiple gods who you guys believe in. You guys funnel the power of these other gods. Some of you supposedly have even spoken to these gods. And so it's like, wait a second, like the moment that you as a writer decide to bring in all these other gods and make them real, make them comparable to another god that you wish for your fictional characters to believe in, you have to reconcile that. There has to be a reason why they want to convert one way or the other. There has to be an understanding of the relationships between these different gods, how they can all coexist. Because again, Christian God very clearly is the one and only true God. How can there then be other gods? For crying out loud, Supernatural has an explanation for this, and Supernatural was winging it after season 5. So it's like, if Supernatural can figure this out, why can't you guys? On top of that, or here's another example: the Chronicles of Narnia. Even the Chronicles of Narnia has an answer to all the other gods. They're basically just subservient creations to Jesus or Aslan. Like that's explained, and just we move on from there. The Stormlight Archive, and actually the whole entire Cosmere, there are 16 different gods. Why are there 16 different gods? Because they killed the one true God, ripped him into 16 different pieces, and then became gods themselves. And that's how you get 16 different gods, and who may or may not want to be worshipped, and just all the other things that they do. Let's hear what other stories with different gods. Even Beowulf has an explanation for why there's these ancient deities. They're basically the old demons, the old gods that must be subjected to the Lord who created them. It's just like it, hello, for crying out loud, for crying out loud here. Rise of the Merlin. You opened a can of worms, and it's a can of worms that you could have at least somewhat addressed with 2 sentences. But you didn't. You didn't. Why didn't you? Because the writers, and this they themselves admitted, they were just, it must be Christian. It must be Christian. It must be Christian. It must be Christian. Christian. Whatever that means. They themselves actually never bothered to sit down and say what it means to be a Christian. Never mind the fact that, again, there's so many different branches of Christianity. They just were like, oh, yeah, Christian. If I say Christian and you say you're Christian, we're all Christian. Oh, if you have ever taken people from 20 different Christian faiths and slammed them into the same room together and asked them to figure out to order a pizza, you know that you're going to have a lot of division, and not just over the pizza. So it's just like, you writers, you're so, like, again, I don't mind you putting a strong emphasis on Christianity in the story of King Arthur. For crying out loud, it was just discovered a week ago, women's fan fiction from the 600s and 700s. Or actually, no, not from the. No, I got that wrong. Not from the 600s. Not from the 600s, 700s. It was from the 900s. It was recently discovered. Women's fan fiction from the 900s, which was another Christianized version of the story of King Arthur. And I'm like, okay, that's fantastic. And they wrote a better King Arthur story that was pure fan fiction in the 900s than what has been written here in The Rise of Merlin. For crying out loud. I gotta let the cat back in. The cat wants into the bag. Hello, kitty. But yeah, so yeah, there's there's my rant. It's like, they just, the writers again took it for granted that they're like, oh, people just understand when we say Christian, they absolutely understand what we mean. And it's like, no, we don't. Because again, if you because their brand of Christian that they are imposing upon the Arthurian legend is modern day Christianity, not what would have been Arthur's version of Christianity, which would have been far more pagan influenced back in the day. Just in the case. On top of that, he would have been very staunchly Catholic, whatever that really meant at the time, because the Catholic Church, such as we know today, did not exist back at the time of the actual or the legendary King Arthur. It looked very different. One of the ways that we know it looked very different, just look at the history behind the conquest of England by the Normans in 1066. There's some fascinating religious history there. Really, really interesting. And that particular version of the Catholic Church doesn't exist anymore either. And a lot of their beliefs also didn't really exist at that time. Hey, Logan, great to have you here. You came in just in time for kind of the closing parts of my rant about the rise of Merlin. But in any case, the writers of for this series again just took it for granted. People know what Christianity is, therefore we don't need to explain anything, and all the characters just immediately believe it. Hooray! In a world where they don't need to believe it because there's all these other gods who can literally kill them with a flick of a finger. We never explain any of this. We're just moving on now. And it's like you opened the can of worms. You opened that and you never bothered once to actually engage with it. By so doing, you actually rob yourself of fantastic world building. You rob yourself to actually make a great argument for Christianity, as well as to build up your characters, show character growth because of the choices that they make, despite the rest of their world telling them that they shouldn't convert. And so, because of that, the writers robbed themselves of so many excellent opportunities. And so, again, if you're going to put any sort of religion into your stories, know what you're working with, understand it, understand a little bit better the audience who might engage with your work, and think about what they really would like to see in whatever sort of religious messaging you might want to put in there. And remember this. If you're going to preach, it's better to preach to rather than preach at. Facilitate a discussion. Encourage people to engage with what they're seeing in your story. If you can't do that, you will have lost your audience. And that's what I see with The Rise of Merlin. Almost no one's watched this show. And the only reason why I'm continuing to watch is because I said I would. Because by the end of 4 episodes, I'm like, I don't care. This is so dumb. It's so bad. You know, it's incredible how people who said that they were going to create a show that was going to be the opposite of Hollywood literally created a show that feels like it came out of Hollywood. The only difference is that it's ultra Christian until it decides that it shouldn't be because the writers of the show post episode 2 were all like, yeah, no, we already established that pretty well. Merlin's a Christian now. Everyone's a Christian effectively, except for those heathen Saxons and those heathen Irish. Everyone else now is pretty much Christian. Yeah, that's all good. Anyone who isn't a Christian is a bad guy. And then just know that. Okay, moving on with the story now. It's so dumb. It's so lazy. And as a result, it's boring. And that's the thing is that like when a story becomes boring, like if a story's bad but not boring, you're more willing to watch it because you're still getting entertained. But when a story becomes boring, it's just like why am I subjecting myself to this? Anywho's, and let me then catch up with what Common Craft put here because there's a lot of stuff here. So one idea I had a while back, but put it back down the lacking skill at the moment, was an idea where isekais are semi-common and can become gods, but have been killed nonstop by an evil isekai god, so the main character hides and makes a tavern, and eventually becomes god of taverns or something. The first ascension in a while. It didn't go much further due to putting aside due to the lack of skills to do it justice. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Imagine our magical does something like that. The setting is mythical Europe, so Christianity is real, but also other religions, and the explanation that the pagan gods are fae with cults. Powerful but noticeably weaker by comparison if you are just a measly human. I just noticed autocorrect turned R's magica into magical. Dang it. Yeah, that ducking audio carrot. Let me tell you that. Wow, neat discovery. I have to look for it. Check it out. Fanfic from the 900s. Neat. Yes. In fact, actually, it's a far more interesting Arthurian story than The Rise of Merlin. Go look up the. Actually, you know what? Let me see if I can find that story, and I will absolutely. I'll absolutely share it. The recently discovered lost Arthurian legend. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the The Lost Merlin manuscript discovered in the bindings of a 16th. So actually, the story's a little bit older than I thought. I guess I came across someone who was just recycling the story here recently. Boom, boom, boom. Let's see here. The Lost Merlin manuscript. Yeah, so the Lost Merlin manuscript discovered in the bindings of a 16th century book. So the thing is this: so the original document is far, far older, and was then that was then used as the material necessary for the binding of this book. So the article that I'm reading right here says that actually they found documents from three different centuries, from the 12th, 13th, and 14th centuries that were then all just slipped on into there. But in any case, yeah. So they managed to find hidden in the binding of this book ancient manuscripts, which are partly fan fiction made for women about the Arthurian legends. One of them being a story about Merlin riding a dragon into battle to save King Arthur, which just sounds really cool. Emily says, "I thought the star represented Des, but hey, and I'm a villain type. I'm a type villain would be pretty cool." Conquest says, "I remember overly sarcastic productions, observing how over time Arthurian stories got more Christian, but the more Christian it got, the more pagan elements got added too, which is interesting. Apparently, the idea that King Arthur's stories were not real caused a controversy back then." Interesting. What is the fanfic called? Is it accessible to the public yet? I don't. Well, I believe that probably by now there are things that they've made accessible. Due to the fragility of the manuscript, researchers balked at the unfolding of the fragments. I will share this link here. You guys should be able to access it since I am the leader of the stream. Also, I'm from One Piece just revealed his true form. Oh, that's right. That's all those. That's all the memes right now that I keep seeing about Aimu revealing their true form and all of the ridiculous things that come as a result. Yeah, no, Overly Sarcastic Productions did a pretty good overview of the Arthurian legend and its history. And it's a good place to start for anyone who wishes to dive deeper. But yeah, so there you have it. I was wrong. It was not out of the 900s, the documents that they found. But I thought I read recently somewhere that they did find documents from the 900s that told of another Arthurian legend. So I might have to go hunting for that to find more. Did someone say One Piece? Yes, I'm Omega did. But in any case, there are so many better representations of the Arthurian legend than The Rise of Merlin, which is a real shame because I would like to have actually seen a good show, a good Arthurian legend show. There's some interesting things in the series so far, but again, everything is so intent on either being ultra Christian all the time or just getting from point A to point B as fast as possible, or doing something specifically to counter Hollywood, that there's no real soul to the show. And as such, it's just boring. The characters are underdeveloped. It's just things happening for things' sake. Comic says, "I've been struggling with juggling multiple story ideas. Any idea how to help with that, Lars?" Ooh, great question, and I have an answer. Commoncraft, here's what I want you to do. All of your different story ideas, I want you to write them down. And I'm not saying like do like a full development, at least just yet. First, take out a sheet of paper or open up a new document, story idea, story idea, story idea, story idea, story idea. Like one sentence or a name. Maybe you have a name to it already. List them out. Then, once you've listed out all your ideas, I want you to then write out your basic idea for that story for each one. So once you have your list, then take that list and evolve that list, each story one at a time. Once you have it all written out, you will then see all of your ambition laid out before you, and it becomes easier to choose one that you really feel energetic for. Go and start writing. And if you suddenly lose energy and motivation for that particular story, you have already written out all the other ideas that you want to do. If you are feeling low on motivation and energy, jump to another story. Like many times we equate writer's block with just I can't write anything. But really more of the time that you get that lack of energy, that lack of motivation, that inability to write for a specific story, it's because you're having a hard time with that story. There's a very good chance that picking up on another story idea will bring back that energy and motivation and inspiration. And then you can start writing again. And then when you feel ready to jump back to that first story you were working on, it's ready for you. Boom, you jump back in and you start up again. Or if you're feeling particularly motivated, what you can also do is you can then say, hey, look, I've got like 2 or 3 story ideas I really like. I'm feeling like I can write all 3 or 2 or 3 of them. So make a schedule. For this week, I'm going to work on this story. Next week, I'm going to work on this story. And another week, I'm going to work on this story. I know that's a lot. I know that that's juggling around, but sometimes that actually helps. Or if you're like, no, I need to focus on one story, then boom, you already then know which story is really beginning to speak to you because you've written it out. The one that stands out to you immediately, that's the one. You grab that one and you start running with it. And if you don't feel that energy anymore, okay, well, I'm not feeling it, but I have my list now of other stories I wanted to write. And so you start working on it from there. You then choose the next one that sticks out to you and you start working on that one as best you can. So I hope that helps out. That's been how I have tried to handle myself, like juggling multiple stories. Like right now, for instance, I have on the burner. I am prepping myself to write the sequel to Monarch Mercenaries. I am working on the sequel to Bleed Steam and Steel. I have to get back to editing my fifth Legend of the Ten Lords book. And so I've already got those 3. While at the same time, I need to finish the most recent draft for one of my fairy tale stories, and I want to revisit my sequel to Tumblteller at some point. So I've got all these different story ideas. I've got 5 that I'm right now juggling, and what I'm doing is I've said, okay, Bleed, Steam, and Steel is the one I know I can work on right now. I'm focusing on that. But actually, when I have downtime, where I'm not like when I'm at work, but I'm not able to immediately work again on Bleed, Steam, and Steel, I take a few minutes to write down notes and stuff for some of the other stories. And when I need a break from what I'm doing, I can go out for a walk and I can just think about another story and just get the creative juices flowing again. So that's the thing. Those are some things I do. One thing I sometimes do when I feel an idea for a story is missing something is to strip it down to its base concepts to try to see what appeals to me about it and if it would work better as a part of another story. But choosing a story to focus on was hard. And yeah, it absolutely can be. Again, that's where like laying out all of your different stories and seeing which one speaks to you in the moment, that's the one to go with. It might not be until it's complete, but it's something to work on rather than just stewing over the fact that you're like, I got so many stories. Because a lot of us are there. A lot of us are there with multiple ideas that we want to write. And unfortunately, we all can't write everything simultaneously. So you got to choose which one feels right to work on. But you can only do that once you lay it out. So I hope that is helpful. And any other questions before we wrap up tonight? I can see if an idea feels a bit uninspiring, but finding what really calls to me is difficult to choose. Uh, no, yeah, say sometimes you just got to go with the gut. uh, one more question. All right, yes, Comicraft, ask your question. But yeah, no, I'm just going to say this: like what immediately speaks to people in the moment will always change from person to person. Sometimes for some people, it's a feeling in the gut. Maybe it's a story idea suddenly clicking. Maybe it's a sense of shame or a sense of we got to jump onto the next thing and whatever. TV Count says, "What's the next lesson? If I can kick my butt into gear and actually get this done this week, I want to be able to release the proper writing lesson video on when to end a scene and how to end a scene. And once that video is out, I want to then be able to have that discussion with you guys. So if possible, the next if I can swing it this week, that means our next writing lesson for the next live stream will be knowing when and how to end scenes. Is it how to manage more than one project? Oh, right now we're just talking about juggling and giving some advice to Common Craft here about like, hey, if I got so many projects to juggle, this is how I find the one that I know I want to work on. So Common Craft says, any ideas about superhero stories? I had 2 or 3 ideas for superhero stories. One about a person from the real world who finds out about the real world as a simulation inside a superhero world and becomes a digital consciousness hero. Another about an Eldritch themed superhero. Ooh, cool. So, I mean, it seems like you've got your ideas, and I say you should run with your ideas. I've got only like one superhero idea, and I think I've talked about before on a live stream. I right now have the idea just titled "A Steel Bullet," and it's about a young superhero who was a gangster until an almost fatal incident while doing something illegal led to him being at the hospital, being abandoned by his gang, and his powers awakening, and deciding that he was going to do good, that he was going to become better. And so we get to see him then grapple with the demons of his past, while at the same time, a new vigilante comes onto the scene. Someone who can use the ghosts of the people he's killed to bring justice to the city. And then Comicraft says another about a fairy tale hero that can become a character's feigned fairy tales. They can become characters' feigned fairy tales that are free, aka public domain, but the best ones being the ones he resonates with. I like that you put in their public domain. Well, that's cool. Which is awkward because the most influential stories on him were Peter Pan, specifically the characters of Tinkerbell from a movie. Well, you can't use them not in the public domain, or at least Disney's version of those characters. No, those are some fun superhero story ideas. Again, write them on out, lay it on out, see what speaks to you immediately in the moment, run with it. I don't think you can really go wrong there. Now then, I just have to say, because you can probably hear it now in my voice, like it really is beginning to go. We've almost been going now for 3 hours. So I'm going to have to wrap it up here before I just croak out like that. Funnily enough, No Evil is mainly taken of public domain material. What I would say is that No Evil is just simply no public domain material, but No Evil really dives into that fun merger of old American folk tales, which no one owns, and old Aztec and Southwest American Southwest Indian lore. Like that's a pretty interesting mesh up. and I've enjoyed how No Evil has managed to wrangle two things that seem like they wouldn't complement each other, and actually has managed to make that happen, while also throwing in the story of the Hatfields and McCoys. All right, everyone. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for joining me tonight for this live stream, for the writing lesson, for allowing me to pontificate, also for about Rise of Merlin, also for talking again some good Deltarune with me, and uh, and and allowing me to have the chance to teach a lesson on writing religion into fictional stories here on Good Friday. So I hope that you guys all have a fantastic weekend. If you celebrate Easter, have a wonderful Easter. And I hope to see you guys soon in the next video. And until then, y'all, choose.